All right. And hello, my friends. We just pressed the let's go live button. So we're waiting for the stream to connect all across the fruited plain of the internet before we jump into the very last Friday of 2022. Woo, that year flew by, didn't it? Certainly did. And we're not done yet. We've got some very serious business to attend to. It looks like we are alive and well, which is tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group, located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, we have some serious questions and business to attend to the last Friday of the year, but we're not done yet. We've got a Ray Epps deposition that just came out. The January 6th Select Committee gave us a parting gift. They're dropping their depositions, tons of transcripts, one by one, day by day, and one that I'm actually interested in reading finally came out. It's Ray Epps. They talked to so many people, most of them irrelevant. Ray Epps is somebody we want to hear from. And so we've got about 97 pages. It was a 3-hour deposition. We're going to go through it. I think we can get through the whole thing relatively quickly, kind of just fly through it. We've got a highlight reel from Ray Epps. We've got the media montage. We've got to refresh our recollection. The FBI wanted this guy at one point. He was right there, number 16 on the most wanted violence at the Capitol. They're like, oh, before they realized, oh, that's one of ours. They really wanted him. And now we're going to go through the deposition, a little game of patty cake that they had between Ray Epps and the J6 committee. So all of that will be there. Before we jump into a little bit of an update on the Twitter files. Now, we're not quite at Twitter files 11. We're not there yet. That has not been released, but there's been some interesting new threads and some interesting information while we wait for 11 to come out. We've covered the previous 10, and so we're calling this the 10.5 update. One came from Matt Taibbi, and he says, look, I know we don't have anything this Friday. We're used to getting these on Friday, but he said, we're going to be connecting all the dots very soon. He said, like a criminal case, we've got tons of journalists that are just rummaging through all of the discovery. And so he did provide an update. And then there's also this individual called Kanakawa, and he put together a pretty great thread over on Substack. We'll actually refer you to his Substack to read the full thing, but we'll go through a Twitter thread that he dropped that Elon said, oh, very interesting thread. Elon said, very curious. And he's talking about CISA, the cyber intelligence, security infrastructure, whatever, stupid acronym they have. But they were the people who were monitoring the elections and protecting all of us from dangerous misinformation. So all of that interesting as we await another Twitter files drop. And then at the end of the program, our final segment will be about the Idaho students, the murder that took place there some time ago in November. Interesting case that we've all been sort of waiting to see what happened. Evidently, they've arrested the person allegedly responsible for murdering the 4 students there. His name is Bryan Christopher Kohberger, and there was a press conference today out in Idaho. We've got several clips from it, from the police chief, from the prosecutor who is going to be prosecuting the crime, Bill Thompson, and it's going to be a slow process. He's still not even in Idaho. He's still in Pennsylvania. They're talking us through the extradition process. They have not found the murder weapon yet. And we've got some interesting new things to learn about the guy himself, Bryan. So people are going through his social media stuff. And evidently he was following them on Instagram. He's like this criminology person. And he was trying to concoct this weird study where he would like invite people to be participants in some sort of criminology or something that he was doing. I don't know. Very strange. So we'll go through that story near the end of the program in the third segment. And as you can see, we have a lot to get to today, my friends. It's a beautiful, beautiful Friday. We're wrapping up 2022 strong. We're glad that you are here with us. And if you want to be a part of the program, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have an awesome community over there chatting away. They're sharing beautiful pictures of dogs with buttoned up, taped up glasses. And John Allen's in the house. He says, good evening, fam. Everybody's here. It's beautiful. It's like peace on earth over there. And it's an amazing community. We did a morning members live stream. If you're a member on YouTube, you can also get those morning member streams. But we like to stay connected in between these broadcasts here at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. So come in and join us over there. And now, before we jump in, I wanted to pause for a quick moment and reference this. Just a quick pause, kind of just a community announcement. All right, there's another YouTuber who's a lawyer. His name is Richard, and he's got a channel called Hogue Law. And his wife posted this just this afternoon, and I wanted to share this with you, just so if you've got some extra prayers to send out their direction. But they posted this. They said that, friends, I don't like sharing personal stuff, and I don't like getting religious, because you are welcome in my life no matter who you are. At this moment, IDGAF, I need the prayers. Rick is in the hospital. It's an emerging situation, probably surgery tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time, so pray hard, okay? So I know many of you are out there, in the law tube world, and you sort of, watch other lawyers out there. Prayers to Rick, prayers to Mrs. Hogue, and to the family out there, right? This is a terrible situation, and so we're sending everything we can, all of our energy and love, your direction. And so send some prayers over there so that they have it. They need it, all right? So extra love, all right? So send that over, and we'll, of course, check back in with them. All right. And so let's now get into the program, my friends, and shout outs to everybody on Rumble. I see we've got some people in the chat over there, Dog Diggers over there, along with Aspen Y Girl, Isle Paint in the house, JB Mills 78, Peter Tags over there. I see Spuds is in the YouTube chat, along with Cool Guy. Just Cause is modding down the fort for us. What's up, Just Cause? PK from AK says, Rob is my go-to. You're my go-to, PK. Thanks for being here. And Pyramid's in the house, Mr. Mike, along with Lenny Malley. All right, my friends. And so let's get this puppy queued up and just dive right back into this, because we've got to figure out what the heck is going on here. Ray Epps, the mysterious man, America's most innocent man, the person who was there on J6, the day before J6, somebody screaming, let's go into the Capitol, into the Capitol, into the Capitol, on the FBI's most wanted list until he wasn't. We finally got a deposition from him. We're going to do a refreshment of our recollections, going through the Ray Epps highlight reels, making sure we remember that this guy was, at least some time ago, a member of the Oath Keepers, hung out with Stuart Rhodes, who's currently being prosecuted by the U.S. Department of Justice for being with the Oath Keepers. We're going to go through Ray Epps' final deposition. It's 97 pages. It went about 3 hours and 4 minutes long. We're going to go through the whole thing as best we can to learn about exactly what happened. And we're also going to familiarize ourselves with his son, called Ray Epps Jr., and his friend called Zach Rash, both of whom have been identified in the deposition. So we'll talk about all of that. But first, let's refresh our memories. Who is this Ray Epps fella? And there's a little bit of a content warning in here. We'll try to flash forward through it. But this is Ray Epps, right here in the red, big tall guy, standing in the middle of the crowd the night before January 6th.
Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. What?
No. No.
Fed.
Right, so they just fast forward. Let's fast forward through that little bit there. Here's another one.
We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are. It's that direction. Please spread the word.
All right, noted.
Okay, but one more thing.
Yeah, so can we go up there? No?
When we go in,
Are we going to get arrested if we
leave
go
this
up there?
here.
When we go
You
in.
don't need to get
Should you
shot.
arrest us all?
There he is, right there. There's another one. There's Ray running up the steps. Running all the way up there. So Ray Epps was everywhere. He was all over the place, except on the FBI's most wanted list after they deleted him. Several different bits of history for our memories. In this clip, you see the FBI had a whole list of people that they wanted. We've got photographs 11 through photographs 20. And in the bottom right, we see Mr. Ray Epps. You can zoom in on that. See it right there at the bottom. Ray Epps. Right there. Photograph 16. FBI seeking information, violence at the Capitol. January 6, 2021. Many other people got arrested. Photograph 12 got arrested. Photograph 17 got arrested. But photograph 16, Mr. Ray Epps has been just misjudged. And FBI deleted him. Now, FBI also evidently is not too concerned about this stuff. This was a post from Ray Epps in Arizona, and it was an announcement of an Oath Keepers event. You can see this was posted on a website some time ago. These are old posts, but it said links to the Oath Keeper national website. Here are their rules, right? We're not going to disobey orders to disarm. We're not going to obey orders to disarm the American public and so on. It was all in that posting, and there was more because Ray Epps, as you can see here, is in the photograph with Stewart Rhodes right there. That's Ray Epps and Stewart Rhodes in the same announcement. The announcement is for an Oath Keepers hometown buffet in Scottsdale. That was taking place back in 2011. So as you know, Stewart Rhodes, who's identified in this photo, standing next to Ray Epps, Stewart Rhodes is being prosecuted. He's being prosecuted by the U.S. Department of Justice for being involved in January 6. Ray Epps, at least at some point, was formerly associated at some way, shape, or form. In fact, this says that he was the state chapter president, Ray Epps, down there. All right. So he's on the FBI's most wanted list until he's not. And they're investigating him. They've got depositions now that have been completed. And there's more because Ray Epps was also marching in a number of different events throughout Arizona. There's more postings. You can see that's another posting from the full clip. The source video is where the FBI got their imagery from. This is another clip. And then I think we have one of Ray Epps marching in the streets of Arizona. And this is where they're playing bagpipes. Ray Epps, you can see tall guy right here in black. Stewart Rhodes is in a suit and tie next to him. They're marching down the street in an Oath Keepers procession. Memorial for a young Marine. Walking right together. You see them right there, hand in hand. So this is a close-up of the actual photograph of the march. You see Stewart Rhodes right there, along with Ray Epps in the background, and another clip of them walking together. You see the excerpts of them top left. So very convenient that they are just, all over the place. They're both Oath Keepers. They are both, or were Oath Keepers at some point in time, both wanted by the FBI. Only one of them has been prosecuted. But now let's take a look at the actual deposition itself, now that we have an idea of what actually occurred. And it is 97 pages long. The select committee to investigate the J6 attack on the Capitol. Hey, this happened back on Friday, January 21st, 2022, involving Ray Epps, the guy we've all been wanting to hear from for quite some time. The interview here was held via WebEx. Oh, great. It was virtual? They didn't even do it in person? It started at 1:04 p.m. We're going to see it last about 3 hours. Not a lot of time. Now, who was there during this interview? We've got Schiff, Murphy, Aguilar, and Kinzinger, the sole alleged Republican on the committee. The committee, as we've talked about, is illegally constituted. They're supposed to have a certain number of members on the committee, 5 of whom should have been Republican. They were not done that way. It was a shall in H.R. 503. That law was violated by themselves. Nobody held them accountable because they said separation of powers, which is true. But even by their own rules, they're in violation of their own House bill, so it's illegal. That being said, let's see what this sham of a proceeding has for us. Appearances, please. For the select committee, who is there? All of these individuals, a chief clerk, don't know the name. Researcher, don't know. Investigative counsel, unknown. Technical advisors, we've got DHS is in the house. We have chief investigative officer, counsel, lawyers all over the place. So we've got about a dozen or so people who are there on the panel asking Ray Epps questions. Ray Epps has a couple people there. Looks like John and Andrew Blischek. And I'm presuming that those are lawyers. And if we search for them, they are lawyers. And that's interesting. They're here in Arizona. And they're criminal defense lawyers. Oh, and personal injury lawyers. All right. So they're Arizona lawyers because Ray Epps is probably still roaming around Arizona somewhere. So Ray Epps sits down for the interview, and you're going to notice there's an interesting phrase where they say that we'll go on the record at 1:04 p.m. So don't know if that's when the conversation started, but they go on the record at 1:04 p.m. And put a pin in this because when we get to the end of this transcript, they're going to go off the record right before Ray Epps asks his final question. They say, Ray Epps says, can I ask you a question? And they say, sure. And he goes, are we off the record? They say, not yet. Hold that question, Ray. And then they go off the record, and then he asks the question. What is the question? We'll never know. But they start the conversation at 1:04 p.m. Somebody from the committee says, good afternoon, Mr. Epps. All right, this is a transcribed interview of Mr. James Ray Epps conducted by the fake illegal committee to investigate the protest pursuant to H.R. 503, which we don't even follow. They say, at this time, I'd ask the witness, Ray, to state your full name, spell your last name for the records. He says, yeah, it's James Ray Epps, EPPS Senior, I'm innocent. He says, thank you. Okay, so this will be a staff-led interview, and members, of course, they may choose to also ask questions throughout this interview, Ray. In the room today, we have redacted. We have this person also redacted, and this person, this person, this person, everybody. A part of the reason you do these things is so everybody can introduce themselves and feel like they did something that day. Just, oh, what'd you do today, honey? I sat around a panel and a bunch of other people asked questions. Wow, that sounds amazing. So we also have members present. We've got Murphy, and Crying Adam Kinzinger is also in the house. And so just to be clear, he says, did I miss anybody who wanted to be announced here today? Anybody else that I miss? Because they all want to be in the transcripts. They all want to be in the records. Like it's like showing up for attendance. Mr. Epps, you're voluntarily here for this transcribed interview. Okay, at this time, could your counsel please state your name? He says, yeah, I'm John. I'm going to be representing this person. Committee says, so there's an official reporter who's transcribing those, and please wait until each question is completed. Otherwise, they can't get your responses. If you don't know the answer, simply say that. I want to remind you, it's unlawful to provide false information. Do you understand that, Ray? Yes, I do. Also, at this time, just joining the call is so-and-so, Chief Investigative Counsel, late. And he says, good afternoon, Mr. Epps. So the committee says, all right, so logistically, please let us know if you need any breaks, like potty breaks, or if you'd like us to discuss anything, or you'd like to talk to your lawyers. We'll all just mute ourselves and go off camera, and then you can talk to your lawyer, and then we'll come back with the questions. Does that make sense? He says, yes, sir. They're all virtual, right? It's a big Zoom meeting. Committee says, and there's also going to be several people asking questions, so if you just don't understand, just ask to repeat it. Okay. So first question is Mr. Blischek, lawyer. Starting off, can you please tell us a little bit about your background and your education and where you're from? And Mr. Blischek, the lawyer, says, I didn't know I was going to do this. What? The lawyer's sitting there going, what are you talking about? The question says, so, Mr. Blischek, starting off, please tell us a little bit about your background and like where you're from and your education background. The lawyer's like, what are you talking to me for? Weirdo. Committee's like, oh, sorry, you're not Mr. Epps. He says, I'm sorry. Mr. Epps, not Mr. Blischek. I don't need to talk to you. You're the lawyer. Oh, duh, I apologize. He says, oh, Mr. Epps, sorry, tell us about your background. He hasn't had his coffee for the afternoon. He says, sorry, not you, Mr. Blischek. Lawyer's like, whoo, holy crap. I thought I was under deposition here. I thought I was going to have to answer some questions. Whoo, got out of that one. So Mr. Epps, he says, all right, sure. All right, my background. Born and raised in Mesa, Arizona. High school, did some college. Things that I needed, business, personal finance, that kind of stuff. Oh, that's nice. And tell us about your career, Ray. Tell us what your first career was and kind of walk us through your career progression. He says, so after I got out of the Marine Corps, I went into roofing. I was a journeyman roofer for a few years, became a foreman. After that, I opened up my own business in the 80s, maybe 86. He says, yeah, 86 or so. And off and on, we followed the work. I ended up in Vegas. I met my wife. We were married back there and moved to Arizona. Vegas wedding. I might have missed this. And how long were you in the Marine Corps? 4 years. What was your job there? Infantry. Did you in the Marines, did you ever work in law enforcement, Ray? No, sir. How about the FBI? You ever work for the FBI? No, sir. Mr. Epps, this is not the first time we're interviewing you. Is that correct? No, sir. It's not the first time. We also met with you back in November. Is that right? Yes, sir. Oh, so that's question number 1. Are we going to be getting a copy of that interview? So we have a November 2022. No, that was a November 2020 interview because this took place what day? January 21. So that was a November 2021 interview. And we're looking for transcripts for that one. And we have not seen them yet. He says, yeah, we talked in November. So today we're going to go through a lot of the same topics that we went through in November, okay? Just to kind of give you a highlight of what we're going for. Because they say, we loved your answers back then. So just do that again. We love what you said. The first thing I want to talk about is, I believe, were you a member of the Oath Keepers at one point? Which obviously he was. We saw him marching around. He says, yeah, I was. Is that correct? I was. Can you please tell us how you came about joining the Oath Keepers, how long you were in it, and what your experiences were? He says, there was geez. He says, gosh, I think it was called the 9/12 March. I think the Tea Party took credit for it or tried to take credit for it. I don't know. I took my dad to Washington, the first trip I've ever been there. We met the Oath Keepers there. We went to a dinner. I thought they were pretty great, pretty stand-up guys. They were prior military or other people that, they wanted to know more about the oath. And so I joined them. What year was that? He says, I'm thinking like 2009, 2010. How long were you there? I don't know, probably a couple of years. Do you have any roles there? He says, I oversaw Arizona as a chapter president, which we saw. And why did you eventually leave? He said, well, there was a push to, not a push. He said, well, Stewart Rhodes. There was some things going on in Washington and Portland. I think it was Portland. Yeah. I think that's when Antifa had first come out, and we were seeing a lot of things. They were burning things, and they were doing different things on the news, and he thought it would be wise if we were to go there and to try to direct them, get in them and direct them to do other things, other ways. I didn't agree with that, so we kind of just split ways. Okay, got it. He said they were too radical, too radical for my likes. So I wonder if they were saying things like they should go into the Capitol building. He says, thank you. Great job, Ray. Love that answer. Beautiful. Keep going. He says, okay, so now I want to fast forward from the couple of years that you were in the Oath Keepers all the way to 2020, now that we got that out of the way. Did you support former President Trump in that election? He says, yeah, I did. And during this period around the election, did you have concerns about how the election went in 2020? I did. Okay, what were your concerns? He says, well, there was a lot of hype around it. You listen to some of the hype, but I try not to judge it. But we had something happen on our property and on our farm, and we have 2 addresses on our farm. It's kind of unique. And on one of the addresses we lived at, we do not live at, we received 5 ballots. Well, no, we received 3 ballots, and we received 2 ballots at another location. He says those 3 ballots, we owned 3 properties for now 12 years. We never heard of the people that were on the ballots. My wife actually told the mail carrier to keep one and send it back. The 2 others she tore them up and threw them in the trash. And I said, you can't throw those away. You got to keep those. She took one in the trash. It had food on it. That was our concern and so on. And he said, all right, look, so just go back a second. The question is, I'm going to go back to the Oath Keeper thing. He says, you mentioned Stewart, right? So he kind of doesn't like where this rambling is going. I don't know if the election was a problem with it or something, but he says there shouldn't be any concerns with our elections. He says, okay, perfect. Thank you. So just to go back for a second, I'm going to go back to the Oath Keepers. You mentioned Stewart. Does that refer to Stewart Rhodes? Yeah. He was the head of the Oath Keepers at the time. Yeah, he's their president. And Mr. Aguilar shows up on the call late, typical. His question goes, okay, all right, Ray, so let's go back. So you just said you had some concerns about the election, but did that shape your mentality as we were heading into December, January? Was that in the back of your mind? He says, one more time. He says, did you have concerns? He says, yeah, is that fair? He says, yeah, I think so. All right, let's go back to your decision to come to D.C. on that day. All right, so, Ray, it's right around January 6th. Trump starts tweeting about the J6 rally. When did you become aware of the rally scheduled for J6? He says, I can't really answer that. Probably sometime in December. I don't know the exact moment. What did you know when you were going to go to DC? He says, I think it was January 1st was when I was going to go. Now, Kinzinger's like, he's squirming in his chair. He's like, I got a question over here. I don't. So he says, I think Kinzinger has a question. And he's like, yeah, I do. Thanks. He says, hi, Mr. Epps. Just real quick, because I don't want to go back to the Oath Keeper thing after we moved on twice. But he says, just when you talk about the Antifa side of things, were you saying his goal, talking about stewards, was to kind of infiltrate and influence and like partner? Or was it like influence and sabotage or stray differently? If you know that answer, I was just wanting to know, says Adam. He says, I believe he was going to try to turn them to our way of thinking. Kinzinger says, understood. Thank you. So the question comes back. He says, sorry, I missed that. When did you say you were going to go to DC? Just approximately. He says, I think around the 1st of January. Approximately is good enough. Was anyone else going? Like family or friends? Did they influence you to go? And he said, well, yeah, I mean, my son was going to go. And he had let me know that he was going probably by the end of December. So our workload wasn't going to allow us to go. But at that point, my wife found out that Jim, his son, was going. And I mean, Antifa stuff, all this stuff. So there was a lot of stuff going on at the time. And so my wife was worried for his safety. So we decided to make arrangements so that I could be there. When you say Jim, is that your son's name, Jim? Yeah, Jim's my son. And okay, and he's, just to break that down a bit, your son invited you before you made the decision. Yeah. And you told him you couldn't go because you had work, right? Yeah. And so your wife stepped in and said, can you please go to protect our son? Is that right? Yes, sir. And what was the concern that your wife expressed to you about why she wanted you to go? His safety. What kind of safety concerns did you have? You mentioned Antifa, but can you explain that? And Ray says, well, it's on the news. Like they're showing cities burning to the ground, different things going on. Every place there's a demonstration, there's fires, people getting shot. And so she was quite concerned. I had my concerns as well. The lawyer chimes in, defense lawyer. And Mr. Blischek says, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt here, but I think that he might want to supplement his answer by stating that you wanted to visit some family relics. Is that right, Ray? Family relics? Ray says, oh yeah, absolutely. Yes. Can you explain that to him? That's interesting. So it's like, I guess he's like coaching him. So the lawyer's helping him with his testimony, and the government's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. He says, so a family originated in Hopeville, Virginia. Peace treaty was signed at our family's property for the Civil War. A lot of family history there. And my son wanted to visit those things. Oh yeah. So the son also was just going to visit some family heirlooms, and they wanted to go to that experience together. Beautiful. So the question back from the committee is like, so this turned into almost like a father-son trip where you did some sightseeing. Yeah, they were just going to go see some family heritage. And you just happened to go to the rally as well. Yes, sir. What was the mood, Ray? What was the mood like, family mood, when you were deciding to go on this trip with your son? It was exciting. I was very exciting. I wanted to show him everything. Have you done this type of trip before with your son? Going sightseeing in Virginia? Parentheses, working for the feds? No, sir. No, sir. Eventually, we want to take our whole family there and do the history thing. We had to kind of live up to that. And they say, all right, can you pull up exhibit number 1? I believe these were text messages, Ray, you were just talking about with your family. I just want to pull that up. I'll share the screen. And just scroll slowly, Mr. Epps, so they can read. Can you go back to the top there? It's Zoom, always a problem. So it looks like there's 3 people in this group chat. Do you recognize this? Is that from my wife's phone or mine? I don't know. You tell me. What do you think, Ray? He says, well, this is my son, Jim Epps. This is his wife, Bethany, and grandson. All right, keep scrolling down. All right, so they say, so this is January 1st, and it looks like your itinerary. It says, Dad's booked to join you in D.C. Okay, so keep scrolling. What was your son's reaction to the news that you were coming? He was excited. We were going to go together. So just to clarify, son wanted you to go. You said no, then changed your mind, and you went. Why did you change your mind? He says, well, at this point, I thought it would be a great vacation and we're going to go see sights together. Who purchased the tickets? My wife did. What day? I don't know. Where were you staying? Well, I was hoping I could stay with my son. So we found a place. Youngest slept on the floor. Sucks for the youngest. Always happens. It was a Marriott. Okay. Going to a football game. Let's see what else. Who else was with you? Somebody named Nathan Jones? Who is that? Oh, Nathan Jones? Yeah, he's a member of my church. Yeah, you know, he put on a barn, the barn that people do activities in. And so they're talking about the text messages. So I guess the overarching question is, you ask for tourniquets in the text messages. You ask for combat gauze and breathing tubes. Going through the text messages. Why were you asking for that, Ray? Was this for January 6th before you went to D.C.? Was this what you were asking for? He says, no, this is before I left. This is what I was asking for because all the things going on in the country at the time, I thought, you know, something could happen there. I was hoping for the best, preparing for the worst. So they're having text messages between Nathan Jones, and he's gathering all this stuff up. He admits he's got the text messages, and then it's weird. Tourniquets, gauze, breathing tubes. So it's fair to say, Ray, that you were, you know, maybe not anticipating, but if there was something that needed first aid at the Capitol, that you'd be prepared for that, right? And you said, correct. I'm sorry. I said Capitol. Was it the Capitol or DC in general? He says DC in general. Okay. Can you help us, Ray, just understand your mindset? You've got gauze. You've got all this stuff. You think your son's going to get murdered there. So what is like your mindset as you're flying out to DC? Ray says, look, like I said before, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. I was hoping nothing would happen, but I carry these supplies all the time in my pickup. I hunt, I carry supplies. Did your son carry some supplies as well? No. Kinzinger pops in. I've got a question. Kinzinger again. He says, all right, Mr. Epps, just again. Would the mindset that you have, would it be comparable to, for instance, you know, pretty much wherever I go, says Adam, I conceal carry. I certainly hope I never need to use it, but I have it just in case. Would you say that it's similar to you? You hope you never have to use it? Epps says, yes, sir. Kinzinger says, that's great. Perfect answer. You're doing a great job here today. So they talk about when they actually land in DC. They don't know exactly when. Maybe it was the 4th. They pull up the flight details. We see all the flight details. Did you have any conversations with law enforcement when planning your decision to come to Washington, D.C.? No. Did you have any communications or interactions with law enforcement when packing first aid for your trip to D.C.? Not that I know of. No, sir. Not that I know of. He says, not that you know of. You just, I don't know of any officers that I ever talked to, says Ray. Yeah, convenient. And going back to your travel out here to D.C., you recall talking to law enforcement officers or the FBI or anything once you arrived January 4th? No, sir. No. The night of the 5th, I was trying to protect them from the, well, I don't know what the guy calls himself, you know, Baked Alaska or something, says Ray. He was trying to incite violence on the police, trying to get other people involved, and I tried to calm him down. I don't believe the police ever said anything to me. So we'll get into the 5th, says Ray. Calm down over there. Actually, right now, he says, okay, but I'd also like to note for the record that another lawyer who's also late joined us. Everybody wants to get their attendance. So before I moved on to the 5th and 6th, any follow-up questions? Stinking Adam Kinzinger starts crying again from the back. He's like, one more question. So he says, okay, no worries. Thank you. So he goes, okay, Mr. Epps, another dumb question. I just want to nail this down. You know, the perception in your mind. So I'll preface this with, obviously, we had riots over the summer, you know. For instance, I was activated with the Guard with those. So he just keeps talking about himself. This dude is so weird. Adam Kinzinger talks to make a point about himself. The last time Adam Kinzinger talked, he said, I conceal carry everywhere I go. This time, he's notifying everybody that he got activated for the Guard, with those. Great. Your perception was any possible violence would not necessarily be from rally attendees or protest attendees. Your perception from what you had seen is that maybe Antifa would be out there trying to infiltrate or create some kind of violent situation. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay. And you had seen reports or heard reports leading up to this saying that whether they had evidence or whether they would be talking heads, that potentially Antifa could be there. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you. Right. So Ray, so it's actually not a bad question, right? Just to clarify on that. This is Ray Epps saying he's not scared of he's not scared of the Oath Keepers. He's not scared of the protestors. He's scared of infiltrators like Antifa. So they turn their attention now to the 5th, the day before the riots, after the election. They say, all right, when'd your son arrive there? A couple hours after me. Did he come alone? No, he also came with his friend. What's his last name? I don't recall. I'm sure I could find it. I mean, I met him, but I don't know what it is. Okay, he's actually a superintendent for my son or something. All right, so they say, let's turn back over to the 5th. What do you all do the morning of January 5th? Ray says, well, we go across the street, we get some breakfast, we hop into our rental car, we go to Hopewell. So you all just went sightseeing on the 5th? Yeah. Immediately? Yeah. So do you remember what time you went sightseeing that morning, Ray? He says, yeah, I'm not sure what time. I think the picture was taken. Looking at the shadows, I'm probably thinking 9, 10 in the morning. This looks like text messages too. Are these pictures from your sightseeing, Ray? Where'd you all go? He says Hopewell, Appomattox Manor, where the hospital, you're seeing it right there, the Depot Field Hospital. That was all Appomattox. Looking at cemeteries and looking for our names and so on. Civil War site, yeah. They have Civil War person named Captain Francis Lewis Epps. Came over from England. Ship captain. Brought back people back and forth. King of England gave him 1,700 acres. Rash, says the lawyer. Rash is the name. Zach's last name is Rash. Zach Rash. Now, these two people have been identified. Taking a quick pause, you can see that Ray Epps Jr. and others, including Zach Rash, were both identified by Twitter and others. And if you look them up, they were never charged with any crimes either. We did that earlier on our member stream this morning. We looked in through the entire case list that has been published by the DOJ. No Ray Epps at all. No Epps or Rash at all. But they're both here. You can see them both, were there. Other people who are in very close proximity to these people are being prosecuted and charged with crimes. They also found these two photographs from sedition hunters, right? Very dramatic names because we all almost lost our country, evidently. They were identified, both there, Ray Epps Jr. and Zach Rash, according to sedition hunters. And so that's who we're talking about. Says thank you. All right, so thank you for following up on that. What was the general mood that evening? That was great mood. We drove around. We looked at a lot. Beautiful family trip. It's really great. What did you and your son talk about during dinner? Oh, how much whatever we're getting with the FBI done. Okay. My son gave me a call. Let me know there was a Trump parade. All of this happening on the 5th. Somebody else from Arizona. We got there a couple hundred. Perfect. Now we get to the Baked Alaska video, the one that we saw. All right. So the night before, there were protests. We got to the protests, says Ray. What's going on? There are a couple hundred people there. I observed a guy over arguing with the police. There was a line of police. There was a line of police, megaphones out there screaming, what's the guy's name? Somebody said LF Antifa, all that kind of stuff. I believe they were trying to get Trump supporters to back their cause. So Ray says, I tried to de-escalate it. I went over to be the gentleman. Well, he's not a gentleman. I went over there to the guy that calls himself Baked Alaska and had words with him. I said that this is not what we're about. We need to stay focused. You guys are not right. You shouldn't be doing this with the police, says Ray. He was saying that the police broke their oath, calling them all kinds of names and stuff. I'm sure you can go to their body cams and find everything that I was saying. We did. We just played that before the segment started. We listened to everything that you said. They say, yeah, that's perfect. We'll pull that video up now. But before we pull it up, how did you know the individual's name was Baked Alaska? Do you know this person? He says, no, I found that out later. At the time you didn't know who he was? No idea. All right, pull up the exhibits. This is a video of you, Ray, from January 5th. I apologize. We're going to play the entire video. So they play the video. We don't get to see what it was. That clip was longer. We played. In the beginning, you're talking about represent 1776. You say it's about the Constitution. What did you mean by that? He says, well, it's the greatest document ever. True. I believe this is my own belief. It's God-inspired. It was also this country. That's what I meant. So you say, we're here to do something as well. I guess you're here to do, when were you going to do it? He says, well, we were here to protest our government and let them know that we're not real comfortable with the doubt in people's minds. So I just hear in the video, you said we're here to protest. In the same vein, you said that you may get arrested for saying this, right? We just played that the group needs to go into the Capitol, Ray, the next day. Why did you think you could be arrested for saying what you were saying, right? We just played that clip at the start of this. He says, oh, I didn't think I was going to get arrested. I was just trying to get some common ground. This guy was trying to turn people against me. You know, I don't know. I saw it there on that one, but he was calling me boomer and it's his generation's fault that we're in a position that we're in. Ray says, oh, I got caught up in the moment. I said that as you can tell, I didn't want to fight with anybody. I didn't want any violence. I was trying to prevent. If you had footage, body cam footage from the police, you would see even more of me trying to stop that kind of stuff. So poor Ray just got a little bit scared and didn't know what to do. So he just started running his yapper to get everybody to not murder him, evidently. Let's play that again and see what Ray said.
Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. What? No! Peacefully. Fed. Tomorrow? I don't even like to say it because I'll be arrested.
What?
Let's not say it.
We need to go. I'll say it. All right. We need to go in.
Shut the fuck up.
All right. So that is Ray Epps. That's what he said. Now, he's very nervous. You know, I just got scared. I thought they were going to murder me and attack me. And so I just had to say what I had to say. Question, Ray. What was the, I guess, numbers? You know, how did you feel out there? Are people supporting you? Was it like 1 against 100? He says, well, there was a few. I believe that one of the ones with the megaphones, they were the ones trying to drive a different narrative and trying to suck people in. And so the question to Ray is like, okay, well, so you said you needed, okay, Ray, you said that you all needed to go into the Capitol. What did you mean by that phrase, go into the Capitol? The Capitol is the people's house, says Ray, and the rotunda. People can go into the rotunda and see what's happening there, you know, peacefully. And my vision was to get as many people in there as we can to surround it, be there and let them know we're not happy with what happened. And that was it. No violence. I'd like to note that Mr. Adam Schiff finally joined the call. God, he's the laziest one yet. Jeez, man. He's just out there doing whatever he does. And he finally joins the call 27 pages in. So at this time on J5, you were under the impression that the Capitol would be open on January 6th. He says, yeah, I thought it was just going to be open. That's what he was talking about. He was trying to organize a group tour of the Capitol. They were just going to go meander around the Capitol building. And he wanted to bring Baked Alaska with him into the Capitol for a tour. We'll get some popcorn and hot dogs afterwards. And by open, I mean like open to visitors, like anyone could walk in. Ray says, yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Do you think this defense has been provided to any other January 6th defendant who's actually being prosecuted? Of course not. What a total scam. And what were you basing this belief on, that the Capitol would be open upon? He said, oh, it was a weekday, you know, just like it was like a weekday. You know, it was like a Tuesday. I believe that Blank and Mr. Kinzinger have questions. Of course, Adam does. Typical. Never shuts up. You know, okay, Mr. Epps, it's interesting. You know, I've seen obviously the part of the video that's made the rounds about going into the Capitol. Seeing that in its full context, it brings quite a different light on it. One question I had specifically is when you said specifically go into the Capitol and the crowd chanted no. In the short context, the one that's making the rounds, it looks like they didn't agree that we should not go into the Capitol. I have a different perception seeing it in the full context now. So he explains away that video, right? Very useful. What was your, and it's fine if it may be in the heat of the moment, but then in those situations you don't remember, I'm curious. When they yelled no, did you have any perception of why they were yelling no? He says, no, I don't think I thought about it at the time. Okay. I think I followed up with that peaceably. Yeah, it seemed to me peacefully. And it seemed to me that they were, says Adam, their focus at the moment was basically trying to incite violence that night. You were trying to stop violence that night. Is that an accurate assessment on my end, says Adam Kinzinger, who evidently can't see what we saw in the video, which is very obvious.
Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. What? No!
Look at his face. You can see his face. He doesn't like that response, right? He knows he sort of failed right there. He's like, oh man, that didn't go all that well. Everybody says no. So yeah, so they are playing a weird game of patty cake, Ray Epps and Adam Kinzinger. That's all I have for the moment. Mr. Aguilar, he says, no, I don't have any questions. All right, Mr. Schiff Pencilneck chimes in. He says, Mr. Epps, I just wanted to follow up on that video. You said, well, maybe I shouldn't say this. If I do, I'll get arrested. What made you think you might get arrested? And Adam, Pencilneck, I think missed this. That question was already asked. If he would have been on time, then he would have heard that question was already asked. Everybody on the committee's like, oh, God, this guy showed up late again. He says, I don't know. It was the heat of the moment thing. I was trying to find some common ground with these people and change their minds. It shouldn't have been said, but I said it. Now, when you say that it shouldn't have been said, what part are you referring to? That you shouldn't go into the Capitol or being arrested? My being arrested. Thank you. I yield back, says Goofball Adam. So the question is, I just want to confirm, did you think you should have said, or were you comfortable saying that going into the Capitol part because it would be open to the public? He says, exactly. And I said peacefully, which is what hundreds of other criminal defendants being prosecuted by J6 prosecutors also thought. We've played videos here of them being waved into the Capitol, waved into the building. Tap, 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 come on in. Question for Mr. Epps. All right, I just want to better understand, give me the context you shared about what brought you down there. You're concerned about fighting? He says, I believe one person can make a difference. I always taught my children that they could make a difference. Okay, nobody cares. All right, somebody else comes in here and starts with questions. He says, I never intended to break the law. It's not in my DNA. Look up my record. I don't break the law. And what made you say the things that you said? He says, well, I didn't put a lot of thought into it. It was a spur of the moment thing. It just happened. I don't know. I should have known. I've been known to say things that I probably shouldn't say, and I don't know. It just popped out. That's a great defense. Yeah, it's great. So hopefully that standard is applied to all of the other J6 defendants. Somebody says, all right, so at the tail end of that video that we played, some people in the crowd were chanting Fed towards you. You remember that? He says, no, I don't remember that. I even asked my son. I had a hard time believing it at first. I thought it might have been dubbed in or something. I didn't hear it. My son said he didn't hear it. So apparently they did. I think this is the raw footage, right? This hasn't been doctored. He says, but you and your son don't recall the Fed part of that video? He says, no, we don't. We don't recall it. Question. What was I think this might have been asked in other ways. When you walked down to the Trump parade, what was your goal there? Just to keep people safe. Walk with other people. And keeping your son safe, because DC can be dangerous. Adam asks another question. He says, okay, Ray, you have a perception maybe at the time that it's possible that Antifa provocateurs could be trying to put a bad name on Trump supporters? Trying to create anarchy? He says, yeah, actually, I think it was some of both. I mean, I didn't know what to think. There were all sorts of people there. It was almost a party atmosphere for everybody there. They had good intentions. The whole hotel I stayed at, everybody was getting along. It was great. There was nobody like that there. It was more of a party atmosphere. Good people and good place. That's it. Kinzinger says roger that. Until the FBI showed up the next day. So were you with your son the entire time? I think we left a little bit. There's also text between the son. They're bouncing around. There was an article printed about you in the Arizona Republic. And he's talking about peaceful entry. So a question from Kinzinger. Hey, Ray, had you heard any news or anything about the Capitol being closed for COVID? No, I thought it was going to be open, and that was my answer. Question, Ray. At any point on January 5th, we've asked this question a number of times, but let's just focus on January 5th. Did you coordinate or speak with any law enforcement officials from the FBI? No, sir. How about the Metro Police? No, sir. The CIA or the NSA? No, sir. Any other law enforcement officials other than the folks you mentioned earlier? No, sir. They talk about going back to the hotel. And we're going to fast forward to January 6th. And we're here. talking about phone records. So let's walk us through the day. All right, Ray, tell us what you did the morning of January 6th. He says, oh, well, that morning we got up early. We went across the street, convenience store, a little kitchen in there, got some breakfast sandwiches, and headed out to the plaza. There were quite a few people there, but the crowd hadn't shown up yet. And so do you know approximately what time you arrived at the plaza? You said it was early. Crowd wasn't large. I don't know, probably 6, 7, somewhere in the range. Why'd you all get out there so early? He says, well, we didn't want to be in the back, man. We wanted to be up front. If something was going to happen, I want to know where the vehicles are at. I mean, if there was an EOD, explosives or something, I wanted to be there. So when you say get up early, are you referring to the rally at the Ellipse? Yeah. Sounds like you were trying to make sure you were aware of alternative routes and stuff. He says, yeah, there could be problems. What was the mood there? He says, well, same thing. It's kind of a party atmosphere. Everyone was happy. Good mood. Everybody seemed happy. What were you guys doing? Any threats or anything? No, we were just watching Fox News. Nothing major. So the rally started, and we were there for the beginning. Yeah. How long did you stay? He says, well, we stayed all the way up to President Trump. Why did you leave when Trump started speaking? Well, Ray says there was a group that started running towards the Capitol. I mean, they were moving quite fast. And I just thought, you know what? I want to be out in front. I'll get up there. And on the way up there, I noticed that there was some of the same people that were there the night before, and they had blowhorns. They were trying to incite people and stir things up. I thought it important that I get up there, and I did. That's the scene that we saw. Kinzinger? Adam says, let the record show that you've been joined by a 4-day-old. So he must have his baby in his hands. This dude is just the weirdest. He says, Mr. Epps, I want to ask you that you talked about the mindset, getting to the rally and getting there early. Was it possible that your understanding was there was Antifa provocateurs there? He said, yeah, terrorists, something like that. It's just better to be prepared. So, Ray, you said that you started heading towards the Capitol. Yeah, right as Trump started speaking. He wasn't too far up into the speech. You remember what time? Was it your intention to go into the Capitol or go to the Capitol when Trump was done speaking? Yeah. And where did you get the idea that you had to go there after Trump's speech? He said it was pretty common knowledge. Everybody kind of knew it. Everybody was talking through it that way. Did anyone tell you to announce this direction to the crowd to go to the Capitol after Trump's speech because you were doing that? Why were you instructing the crowd to go there after the speech? He says, look, I was just pointing in the direction of it, trying to show them where it was at and making sure we would be there. But did anyone tell you to do that? No. Any law enforcement officials instruct you to say that? No. What was your purpose? As I said before, I just had some questions I thought we could protest. So you started walking to the Capitol, right? Yeah, right after Trump started speaking. He starts speaking at noon. You start going sometime after that, right? Yes. I wasn't walking with anybody. I called a few people that had megahorns. And there were some people talking about Antifa, George Soros, and all of that same stuff. And you're alone. You're not with your son or his friends? No, I'm solo. We got separated after I started walking towards the family. Now, you said that this was a family trip, but you're there to look out for your son, right? But why would you leave your son during the rally to the Capitol? Good question. Ray says, well, we were taking turns on the corner trying to keep our seats. Your seats would disappear, so we were taking turns doing that. We did get separated. I'm not sure what my thought process was there, except I needed to be in the front. I don't know how long they left. I think they probably left pretty soon after I did. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. They say no worries. Okay, cool. So no worries about him not being able to answer his entire basis for going on the trip, which is to protect his son. He's no longer protecting his son. Got it. You said you wanted to get out in front just now, I guess. I think you have alluded to this before. Why? He says, well, for a few different reasons. Why you wanted to get out in front as you started walking to the Capitol. Why? Ray says, well, a couple reasons. One, we were cold, man. We were freezing our butts off. It was cold out. If we were going to get in the Capitol, I wanted to be inside just to get some warmth. My son had referenced the same thing. We weren't dressed properly for their fake insurrection. And two, I didn't want any fighting to break out, going in the wrong direction. So at this point, Marines are always in front, not at the back, says Ray. But you're still assuming that the Capitol is going to be open. True? Yes, that's true. And what was the mood? He says the megaphones were out. There was a more of a, we've got to get there now type. The majority of people were going in there. You know, they were not your grandmas and grandpas. You know, they weren't us fat guys, he says. Probably people in the mid-20s, mid-30s. I didn't notice any of them had uniforms on or anything. And off to the left, I was looking at the Capitol, that first barricade. If you looked out to your left, I noticed a group. There was 20 or 30. They looked like they were in uniform, like a khaki-looking uniform with an orange hat. I didn't know who they were. I thought to myself, they're not. They're going away the other way for the moment. I said, they've got something else going on that's not a part of this. Oh, very interesting. I didn't know who they were. A group, 20, 30, looked like they were in uniform, khaki-looking uniform. Later on, my son told me he saw that as well. I don't know who that was. I'm sure you could identify them if you look at the film. Orange hats stood out? Orange hats, I think. Exhibit 10. Moves on. Khaki or green, I'm not sure, but they were uniforms. They play a video. Exhibit 10, don't know what it is. Video is shown. Thank you. Moving on. So just to help us with the timing, if you left at noon, what time do you think you got to the Capitol? Did you stop anywhere? No, I went straight to the Capitol. I think I stopped to use one of the restrooms. So approximately like an hour or 30 minutes. How long did it take you to walk there? No, not that long. Maybe 20 minutes. I'm sure it looks like, so it looks like you're on the west side of the Capitol. You're talking to an individual in a red shirt and you're not with your son, right? No. So describe the scene here. Is this right when you first arrived at the Capitol? Had you been there for some time? What's going on? This was right when I got there. I don't recall saying that to him. I told a lot of people that day to drop things. I said a lot of people, put that down. I don't recall doing that at that point. I mean, it's not in my DNA to break the law. I don't know how they got footage of that because I don't know. I don't ever remember saying that at that point when we go in. I don't remember that. There's a redacted question by somebody. What is this redacted question? So they say, Ray, once you saw the barricades, did that sort of convince you that the Capitol was not open for business? You know? Yeah. Did you consider just going back and joining up with your son? He says, well, I figured at that point we would all be together. They could see us outside the gate. But why did you say when we go in to that guy? I don't remember saying that to him. But you still think that you might be heading past the barricades at some point, right? I don't recall. My mindset changed at that point. The only way to get in is get past that. And I didn't plan on going in after I saw that. Okay. And at that time, did you think that the individuals that you were surrounded by were going to try to break through the barriers? No. What did you think of the folks that you were just talking about? I mean, you described them as carrying sticks and stuff. Why did they have the sticks? He said, I didn't see a lot of sticks until after it already escalated. I didn't see a lot of that stuff. That's why I had a hard time believing that was said right then. I don't know what to say about that. I don't recall that happening. So this is just the blurry, I don't remember anything defense. This is just him flailing for a bunch of, it's memory problems. You just can't remember anything. The video clearly shows it. They say that. They say, so you saw the video just now. And why would you engage with this man and another person right outside the Capitol? Why were you walking around engaging individuals? Because they were trying to incite violence and I was trying to de-escalate it. Well, they were calling them oath keepers, calling them every name in the book. Kinzinger has another question. Hey, Ray, would you say that it was a pretty high adrenaline moment? You know, a lot going on, a lot of details, hard to remember. He says, at the time, I knew that there were people trying to do things. And pretty high adrenaline, though. He says, yeah, a lot going on. Almost like a rage. These guys, you saw it shortly after, almost like they were in a rage the whole time and losing their minds. I didn't understand it. They definitely had an agenda. So a question about the guy with the backwards hat. Do you recall talking to this individual with their hat on backwards? He says, I do. And that's this individual from the highlight reel and the individual from the actual, this guy, from the actual wanted picture. So this guy has the backwards hat on. This is Ray Epps. He talks to him right here. That's the part of the video that they're referencing. And we go back. He says, I believe, I'm trying to remember because there was fencing here. The guy with the hat on backwards, I never met him, but he was trying to cause problems. And what you didn't see there is that he ran right up to the fence and started rocking it. And when I went out there and I talked to him and I said, okay, you know, that's not why we're here. You got to be peaceful. I pulled him back and I told him that's not what we're about. He says, so let me get this straight. He had been shaking the fences and then you spoke to him. Yeah. And what did you think he was about to do? Why'd you go talk to him? He says, well, he was trying to shake the barrier down. Did you know he was trying to shake it down to get in front of the Capitol, get into the Capitol? Ray says, I didn't know. But something I did notice, these guys, all these guys, they knew what they were doing. I mean, this wasn't the first time they've done this. They would push when they were there. When the police were trying to keep them out, they would push and push and push. So the police would push back and they couldn't break it down. And then when they would step back and pull it towards them, the police would fall down and then they were in. They've done this before. This isn't a first time deal for them. I mean, I wouldn't have thought about doing that. So very organized, it sounds like. What was your reaction, or actually, did the individual say anything back after you talked to him? What was your reaction? Because about 1 minute later, he pushes through the barricade. What was your reaction to the individuals pushing through that fence, Ray? He said, I believe I said, no, no, no. I guess if you're saying no, 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 why did you follow the individuals up the walkway and run right in after behind them? Well, I was trying to keep them from doing more damage and talking them down to de-escalate it because you've been doing such a good job thus far. How did you think you were going to be able to talk them down? What was your guess? What was your plan to de-escalate this? Same thing I'd been doing, position myself between them and the police, trying to de-escalate it. There were a lot of people getting sucked into this, trying to dismantle the violence. I tried to prevent it from happening. And they ask about other individuals. What was going on and what were you doing as individuals were continuing progress closer to the Capitol? He says they were running up. I did a little jog. I don't run no more. I did a little jog and I got up there with them. And they look at text messages. They pull up some text messages. It's from your wife's brother. This is a message that you had the day after. So there's a text where Jeff says to your wife, it says the following. Jeff says to Ray's wife, your very naughty husband is not wearing a mask. You better put him in the doghouse for 2 weeks to quarantine when he gets back. COVID-19 is no fun. There's a photo there in the text. You know what I'm talking about, Ray? Yeah, he's a nurse. Okay, well, the question is, and I don't know blank, but if you're able to find that one, but in connection with that text message, he sent a photo that I believe is of you talking with the guy in the red hat and that we've just seen in the video. Did you know that Jeff was there at the time too? No, he was not there. So how did he get that photo? I think he's computer savvy or something. The picture looks like it came from Twitter. Where did you get the photo? Jeff says, I'm surprised he didn't clock the kid fighting the cops, but he tried. So Jeff wasn't there to see it. He didn't know what was happening, and presumably he saw the video. Yeah, so Jeff got the video just like everybody else did and sent it to his wife. I wasn't aware about the conversation until I got home. He says, were individuals battling with the police? He says, yeah, I saw people doing that. I was trying to de-escalate it, but I was not able to do so. Did you talk to any officers? I did talk to some of them. Is it fair to say that you were trying to prevent other people from thinking they were going into the Capitol? Yes. So after the barriers broke, did you follow the crowd into or did you leave the Capitol? Tell us what happened once. He says, okay, look, I took a couple of steps in and I just looked around and I was sick. There was a lot of tear gas, a lot of bad stuff going on. So I started to leave and I heard somebody screaming for a medic. So at that point, I had my first aid kit. At that point, I went in. Ray Epps went into the building. A lot of other people went into the building. They were also trying to help people. that were also there because they thought the Capitol was open, that were actually escorted in, tapped in by the police, also trying to help and be useful. They've been prosecuted. Ray Epps has not. They also don't remember a bunch of stuff, have a bunch of adrenaline going through their heads, probably also cold and wanted to get inside. All of the same excuses this guy is offering here are the same reasons that many other people had as their foundation for a defense that were overlooked. So he went up there and found an individual laying on the ground. He was lifeless. I felt down on one knee, took his vitals. His heart was fibrillating almost. It wasn't beating properly. Another medic showed up. I said, he's not breathing. Somebody do CPR. And he said, let's find out if he's epileptic. I lost my voice because I was telling people, emergency, emergency, please clear the way. We got to the lawn. There was a tree. We propped him up on the tree. He said, I don't need 911. I'm fine. That was the end. Ray says, I looked back. I saw people crawling all over the Capitol, climbing the walls. It made me ill. I decided to go back to there was no point in going back. It had gone beyond to what I wanted it to be. So the question is, okay, so Ray, so you took a couple of steps in. Where did you take a couple of steps in? I want to make sure we're understanding. You said you took a couple of steps in. It's like a platform. I walked onto the platform. Tear gas kind of overtook me. I'm thinking, crap, now what? I started walking back out. I heard somebody yelling for a medic. So I got them. Oh, I think it was the platform before you go into the building. Oh, before you go into the building. Okay, that's where the guy was laying right there. Oh, so it's just close. It's the platform outside the west part of the West Plaza. Is that what you're saying? So maybe not actually into the building, just on the platform of the building. So they're trying to distinguish this. So is the platform that you said you took a couple of steps up to, that's on the other side of the Capitol around 2:12 p.m. So you weren't up that high on the Capitol area. No, I wasn't anywhere near that, no. Right, and so one of the things that we've been curious about is what's the distinguishing factor? Why are some people prosecuted for J6 offenses and others are not? How do they separate the cases out? One theory has been that it's about entry into the Capitol building. Of course, there's a bunch of people being prosecuted who never stepped foot into the Capitol building. Some people, like Enrique Tarrio, weren't even there in D.C. on the day of January 6th. So they're trying to sort of, I think, define why Ray Epps is not included. Pull up Exhibit 14. This is a area. Here's a text message from Dalen, Ray's nephew. Text messages. Nephew says, you and Jim be safe. Wow. It looks like around 9 a.m., Ray, your nephew texts you. It says, you and Jim be safe. That's Ray's son. And around 2:12 p.m. on January 6th, you texted back. Said, I was in front with a few others. I also orchestrated it. It's a weird thing for Ray Epps to send. I also orchestrated it? Question is, this is the exact same time of the video that I just played. Help us understand this text, Ray. What did you mean by orchestrate? What did you orchestrate? He says, well, I just meant that you have to understand our relationship, uncle, nephew. We hunt together, we fun with each other. We do that kind of stuff. And so what I meant by orchestrate is I helped get people there. I was in the front with a few others. I also orchestrated it. At that point, I didn't know they were breaking into the Capitol. I didn't want windows to be broken. I didn't know anybody was in the Capitol. If I answered him, it means that I was on at 2:12 on my way back to the hotel. So you're now away from the Capitol, right? And when you say I was in front with a few others, what are you referring to? I was in the front. I guess I'm trying to understand. Why are you telling your nephew that? He says, well, I was pretty proud that we were all there. I wasn't proud of some people, but for the majority of the people there, they were pretty peace-loving people. They were like me. The atmosphere was good, except for those people that were trying to take it in a different direction. And the people that were trying to take it in a different direction, were these the type of people that you were talking to, trying to de-escalate? He says, yeah. And going back to the platform, I want to make sure I understand. Did you go up like stairs at all? There's several levels of that. Yeah, I did go up some stairs. The ones under the scaffolding, or was it, he says scaffolding. I never got to the sides. I was in the middle by the scaffolding, the big area. Okay. And you kind of stayed that area that whole time? Anyone have any follow-up questions? Rep Murphy chimes in. Who are the people who wanted to take this thing in a different direction? Can you tell us who those people were? I can. The FBI, the feds. Ray says, no, I can't. I don't think. I assume that they were probably Antifa, but I don't know. So as you were engaging with them and trying, as you said, to connect them, how are you trying to connect them? Well, it wasn't that. It was like, I'm upset with two guys. We've got to be peaceful, you know. Okay. Any other questions? So a little bit more on the word orchestrated. It was me being, you know, how do you say? You would have to understand the relationship. It's like, yeah, I took credit for it, but like, I didn't know I was taking credit for it. You know, if you scroll down, the question was, did you go in? I didn't answer him because I didn't get back on the phone, but I believed what I'm seeing, the damages these morons did. We didn't see the whole picture. So he's communicating without knowing the full information. I wasn't talking about the damage and all that stuff. Like when I said orchestrated, I wasn't taking credit for that. Getting people there, yeah, I was taking credit for that. I was taking credit for it. So you were proud of orchestrating the energy, the march to the Capitol, the expression of strongly held views about the election, but not happy about the violent part, the part that made you turn away, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's an embarrassment. It took away what they did, took away from everything. Who's going to listen to anybody when something like that happens? Yeah, it's exactly why they wanted it to happen, right? It makes it very convenient to go after an entire political party at this point. So the question says, yeah, well, it's interesting to me that, you know, you watch these videos and you emerge as a leader. You're there trying to talk to people, talk sense into people, and no one appointed you or asked you to do that, but you took it upon yourself. Now, tell me more about those decisions. Did you see yourself as a leader, as an orchestrator? Ray says, no, I just know in my mind what I wanted to see. And that was a peaceful demonstration. I wanted our elected leaders to see that we had questions about the election and we failed. So I wanted to know we need change so this doesn't happen again. So they say, but you are proud of orchestrating that. He says, orchestrating's the wrong word, okay? Okay. I don't know what the right word is, but orchestrating. My wife has told me over and over, you shouldn't say things that you don't, you know, I shouldn't have used that word, says Ray. Well, what's a better word now? Well, if you, upon reflecting and listening to the good advice of your wife, which all of us should always do, shout out to the wives out there, what would have been the better word, Mr. Epps, to use to characterize your conduct? I helped people get there. I see. Fair enough. Thank you. What was your goal? Peaceful demonstrations. But you had concerns? I did. And, you know, Trump, was the president's rhetoric about the election something that influenced you? Well, I'm sure he played a role in it. Let's take a look at these text messages. So they share text messages back and forth. You've had anxiety about COVID? Yeah. Miss Murphy chimes in. Sir, if I can paraphrase what I think you're saying is that there were Trump people, okay? There were Trump supporters there who were peacefully just trying to show their presence, but they had concerns. You believe that those who moved the event in a different direction, a more violent direction, were not actually Trump supporters, but Antifa. Can you tell me why? And then there were some Trump supporters who got caught up in that moment because they were encouraged by Antifa. Is that right? Yeah, I think so. You know, I don't know. I can't say that there were Antifa. I just know that I went to one other Washington march. It was a 9/12 march. It was totally peaceful. I think there was one arrest. Somebody was there. They arrested him, but they weren't part of it. There was a piece of trash left. There wasn't even a piece of trash on the ground when I left. No one tried to hijack that one. So what led you to believe that these were Antifa? Well, watching what happened in Portland and across America, who else would it be? Great point there, Ray. Have your views on Antifa and infiltrating, has it changed now looking back over a year? No, not really. You got to remember, I haven't been watching the news. I turned it off in January. It's really depressing. So going back to J6, Ray. So you sent that text to your nephew saying that you orchestrated this. What did you do when you left the Capitol? I went back to our hotel. I tried to call my son. Phones weren't working really well because the cell towers get overloaded in those situations, and the batteries were going dead. They told me how to get to the next Marriott, and he's traveling around. I came outside, I started walking, and he says, there's ambulances all over the place. Somebody told me, they said, you need to take your Trump hat off and hide it. I said, why? And they said, well, because they just shot 2 Trump supporters down the street because they had their Trump stuff on. So I put it away. I found a gentleman that had pulled up, had a Trump hat on. He was in the car, and I told him, I'd be glad to pay you to take my room. But we just had a shooting down the street. They shot 2 Trump supporters. He took me to my hotel, and I went upstairs. Started watching the news, found out really how bad it was. It really saddened me. What a terrible day. When were you able to connect with your son? They got separated in the crowd. Jim had been trying to get other people out, helping older people and stuff. His friend showed up. Jim didn't show up for quite some time. Your son did show up before the curfew. Yes, he did. We watched the news the rest of the evening. Got back to Arizona the 7th. On the 7th, actually did some tours. And the question. So I just want to recap on January 6th. Did you talk to any FBI agents at all while you were in D.C. on J6 or J7? No, not that I'm aware of. Anyone from the CIA or NSA? Not to my knowledge, sir. Anyone from the Metro or Secret Service? Not to my knowledge. The officers on the steps, I apologize. I talked to them, So when you were saying things on January 6th, when you were out there screaming into the Capitol, when you were de-escalating, which he wasn't, or when you were whispering to the guy with the hat on, were you doing that because you had been instructed to do so by the FBI or the CIA or the NSA? No, sir. Had you talked to anybody, FBI or otherwise? No. No text messages, no types of law enforcement communications that day? No. No additional questions. They look at their phone records. Text message from January 6th. Never heard of that person. You got another message from Paul Carver. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Does he work for the FBI, the CIA? Not that I'm aware of. Did you discuss your plans with him? We saw calls from Scott Epps. Does he work for the FBI? No. There were calls from Daryl Epps. Does he work for the FBI? No. What number was that? They're talking about Twitter and the rest of his phone logs. And so this wasn't a conversation with the FBI or the CIA. So you see this little game they're playing with us right now, where they are walking us through his entire call log. And they're saying, oh, is this an FBI agent? Let me call this. Do you work for the FBI? No? Great. Right. Ray's doing that on every one of them. Which I'm wondering if they're also getting his secret Fed phone as well. Did they get the secret Fed phone records also? Probably not coming into this line of questioning. They get a lot of spam calls. Never heard of that one. Never heard of that one. Do you speak with the CIA? No. Do you speak with the FBI? No. Do you speak with Metro PD? No. Question from Kinzinger. Did any federal agencies at all talk to you about any federal agencies at all? Or did you talk to anybody prior to J6? No. You mentioned your brother-in-law. Is that how you became aware that you were listed on the FBI's wanted list? Yeah. How'd you find out about that? Well, he sent a text to my wife, had a picture of me in it. And so let's go through this. He said it had a picture of me in it, and she asked him how he got it. He said it came over Twitter. Turns out I'm on the FBI's most wanted list. I didn't find this out. I believe it was on the 8th. I had immediately after we talked to him, we called him and talked to him about it. Immediately after the phone number called the FBI number. Yeah, they pull up the photo. That's the graphic you saw? Yeah, that's the one. Is that your brother-in-law? We scroll down a little bit. Yeah, he calls. I was on hold forever with the FBI. So you called the hotline. We saw it on your records. How long between that time did you call? My wife called. Why did you want to call so quickly? What went through your mind? The FBI records show that you were on the phone with them for an hour. Was it a full hour? No. He says, I talked to somebody. They said, okay, hold on a minute. They recorded it. You probably already have that. Don't recall what the next steps were. First time you talked to the FBI was on January 8th? Yes, sir. It looks like there's another text message that happened on the 12th. Any suggestions on a good attorney? My wife has a girlfriend that she grew up with, was dating a gentleman that was an attorney. They hired an attorney right there afterwards, hired Mr. Blischek. Now it looks like you sent over a letter, Mr. Blischek, a letter of representation. Same letters, right? So the lawyer got involved. They're sending letters back and forth. They take a 5-minute break for some reason at 3:45. They come back 2 minutes later at 3:47. Ray Epps still has his mic muted. Ray. He unmutes himself. Ray says, okay, so I've got a couple clarifications to clear up, or some things that I want to clarify for you. So he talked to his lawyer. They're clearing up the air. Says, okay. Ray says, so I didn't answer correctly, one of them being the 305 number. He says, there were some YouTube videos. All that stuff was sent to me. I never answered it. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know who this was. I don't know who this was. Clarified. The other, he says, Jim. So when Jim was interviewed by the FBI, I wasn't aware of this, but he provided pictures and a timeline and all this stuff. And when we got to the Capitol, he was no more than 30 to 40 feet away from me at all times and had pictures to document that. And that's what he turned into the FBI. I was not aware of that. So Ray sounded like he was just sort of meandering around. His son was on his own. Ray was on his own. But apparently his son kind of was in eyeshot of him the whole time. One more question about Carver, talking about a political group, a political action group, talking about, 5G technology and getting to the event early. Are there numbers on your call that may not have been saved in your phone? You're trying to figure out call log numbers that might be on your phone, right? Yes. All right, final question. Were you acting on behalf of any government agency when you were in DC? No. The only time I've been involved with the government was when I was a Marine in the U.S. Marine Corps. Other people say that you might have been an agitator. You've been following those stories? Yeah. They're saying I was. He says, well, I don't believe it. I'm just being used to further their agenda. So they can sell their news, or they can sell their YouTube channels, or tell you to subscribe to their YouTube channels by talking about Ray Epps, pushing this garbage, or on the other hand, to further them in a political career. He says, do you have any insight about why you have not been charged by the DOJ? Great question. He says, because I'm sure the DOJ, the FBI, and you guys have gone through these, and it's the little snips and pieces. The edited film that they put together, this fictional character that they put together, it doesn't fit. If you see the whole story, you see that I'm trying to stop the violence, trying to keep people from getting themselves in more trouble. Pretty sure that's why. Lawyer says, I think you're asking him a legal question that he can't answer. First time lawyer chimes in. And, I think that's an appropriate, actually, this lawyer was chiming in earlier. He was up here earlier. That's not a fair assessment. But he said he's asking for a legal question, like a legal conclusion. But this has been sort of a loosey-goosey deposition this whole time. It's like a friendly conversation. So trying to keep this open, because they're on the same team. Now, as to Ray's point about this, this may very well be true, right? Let's say we give Ray Epps the benefit of every doubt. Okay, he's not a Fed. He doesn't work for the FBI. He's not somebody who is in on this. This would be a very nice standard to apply to everybody else who's not Ray Epps. A lot of other people there on J6 were not violent. A lot of other people were there peacefully protesting. A lot of other people did a lot less than Ray Epps. Okay, didn't say what he said the night before. Didn't do anything that he did the night before. And they're still being prosecuted. Some of them are still in custody. and he's not. So if we took this standard and they applied the Ray Epps standard to all of the other 900, you'd have a lot less to argue about. But Ray Epps was in certain portions on the property. He was almost one of the first people through the gates. Other people that we've talked about on this channel were waved in to the building. So the lawyer says, trying to keep this open disclosure, but if we're in an adversary hearing or more formal, I would object on the basis of the nature of the question. Understood. Okay. Yeah. So the lawyer's like, all right, let's get this thing back on track here. Okay. Because it's a loosey-goosey depo. It's like friends having a cup of coffee. Lawyer says, I'm charging him a lot of money. I got to take care of him. That's a good call there, John. John says, this may be a better question for you then. Are you aware? Do you have any understanding of why Ray Epps was removed from the list? And the lawyer's like, I'm not being deposed here, wackos. Upon information and belief, I believe he was removed shortly after he contacted the FBI or the FBI contacted me. Don't ask me any more questions. Mr. Epps, why are you also aware in tracking certain, elected leaders accusing you of being an FBI informant or an agitator like Ted Cruz and Thomas Massie? Yeah. How have those reports impacted you? He says, well, I'm going to start with the most tragic, but give me a minute because I might get a little emotional. Get the Kleenex out. The lights dim. Some music starts playing. A little violin comes out. And then Ray Epps takes his moment to shine. He says, I have 38 grandkids, and one of them, inaudible, he starts breaking down. Those grandkids are being picked on at school because of what their granddad did. Because there's not a lot of Epps in the country. Now, these grandkids I've taught their whole lives, and their parents have taught their whole lives, and we obey the law. We choose to do right. We stick up for those that are less fortunate. We do those things. I'm a fighter by nature. I'm a Christian by choice. That's what we've taught our grandkids. Now, that's just part of it. The other part is my wife is not living in our home right now. We have death threats. Some of them are very credible, and it's not good. Our business is we went from 5 to 6 weddings a week. Now we're down to 2 or 3 a week. We're not getting the calls. We're not getting we have these Google accounts and all these different things, and they've absolutely destroyed us. It's very disheartening. And the leaders that try to ride this thing for gain for whatever purpose they're doing it, I just believe that they could do better. It saddened me because I respected these people. And not just them, the news. I respected them and I watched them. You get better news on the tabloids. At least the same. At least when you read that, you know what it is. I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed. And some leaders in the media, some of the media, there's been a few that told the true story. Does that give you a good enough answer? Poor Ray. Yeah, things sound pretty bad. He could be in federal custody, rotting away, like many others. Could be a little bit worse. But they say thank you. I know that it's probably really difficult to talk about some of these. I'm going to go turn it over to Kinzinger, who never shuts up. I says, okay, Mr. Epps, thank you. So you understand our commonality. I'm a Christian myself. I think truth matters. And for me, so what have we learned from Adam? He's got a newborn. He served in the guard. He also concealed carries, and now he's a Christian. So as you know, for me, learning to tell the truth at Sunday school, he also went to Sunday school as a kid. And one of the first lessons I ever learned as a kid was to tell the truth. He has these weird intros every time he opens his mouth. It's weird. Just ask your question, Adam. You talk about this, how it affected your life. What do you, sitting where you are now, what's your biggest fear? And have you ever considered, potentially speaking out about that? I just want to kind of get your mindset on that too, because my perception is, not speaking on your behalf, but my perception is, you were exercising your First Amendment right. You were trying to do the right thing, and you provided a snippet of a convenient narrative for a conspiracy. So I just wanted to hear more from you on that. Ray says, we couldn't speak out for quite some time. It's an ongoing investigation. And like certain senators or certain politicians that were questioning the FBI know what the answer would be, but they're trying to drive their narrative, and the media's done the same thing. They know anybody in my position can't talk about it. We've asked by our attorney, some we pay to give good advice, and their advice is don't talk about it. And they take that to the next level. He must be guilty. He's not talking about it. The media coaxing us to come out, camping out at our house, and the buses of people that come. We had a tour bus come to our house, and our business with all these whacked out people in it. There's a tour bus? The Ray Epps reality tour? Oh man, that's crazy. There are good people. Why didn't I think of that? There are good people out there. That was in Washington. Those aren't the people that's coming by our house. This attracts, when they do this sort of thing, a lot of crazies out there. Ray says, we've got one guy that's been in prison and shot by the police once, and he's out on bail now, and now he's trying to contact me. Those are the kind of people that I'm talking about. There are crazies out there, and I don't endorse the crazies. But, well, thank you, they say, Kinzinger says. I have to leave in 10 minutes, but thank you. Kinzinger says, the lawyer says back to Adam, Mr. Kinzinger, before you leave, why don't you take care of that baby, okay? Kinzinger says, yeah, my wife's got him right now. Okay. Kinzinger says, thank you. It's just adorable. Isn't it adorable? Gosh. Oh, gosh. Question for Ray. All right, I want to follow up and not belabor this point. I know it's difficult, but my understanding is that the former president was in Arizona recently, and he sort of was advancing this conspiracy theory. Has that had an impact on you? Yeah, it did, he says, Ray. It was very troubling. I think he's being misled right now. I think he's surrounded himself by people who don't know the truth. I don't know what to think about that. Has there been an uptick in hostility towards your family? Yeah, but not due to Trump. That was before, let me get the names right. It was really when Congressman Massey, who's outstanding, shout out to Congressman Massey. There was a blog or something called Revolver. Shout out to the Revolver guys. Also Gates and Green. You know, look, if Ray Epps wouldn't be the lightning rod, wouldn't be the central figure if the standard wasn't so egregiously inappropriate, right? The standards are so double that it's nuts. So he says it got difficult. Kinzinger says, may I ask real quick, what month did this start to accelerate? He says, well, it really started up when Revolver started. And Massey's comments were in October. Director Ray was talking about this. And they start to wrap it up. And just to confirm for the record, Ray, the committee reached out to you at the end of October. We talked to your lawyer for the first time November 3rd. And I don't know that we've gotten a copy of those transcripts. Is there anything else we didn't ask you, Mr. Epps, that you wanted to talk about today? You know, my wife wanted something to read, wanted something read. Lawyer says, yeah, I'll just sum it up. So they don't actually read it. They're like, yeah, whatever. She discusses a little bit about the death threats. I'm sure you heard, living situation. She suggested that he go, and it's her fault. Okay. So wife is saying it's her fault because that she made him go. And Ray says, no, it's not her fault. She just wanted to thank you guys. Not been a good experience. So she writes a nice letter. Kinzinger asked the lawyer, says, this might be better directed for your counsel. In terms of information we've learned and discussions we've had, is it a hope that there is truth that gets out there? Are you worried about that? I was discussing with my client just prior to what we started that I fear that what could happen to my practice if certain allegations are made regarding me representing Epps. I'm a criminal attorney, been doing it for 35 years. Occasionally, the public does not like when you represent various characters. And I'm not saying in any way I'm proud to represent Mr. Epps. Thank you. Boy, is this a lot of pressure. And I'm not saying in any way. He says, I'm proud to represent Mr. Epps. He says, thank you. Boy, is this a lot of pressure. Now, having said that, sometimes you don't always, did he forget his client's name? Sometimes you don't always represent the best in people. So I got my guard up. I already had one threatening call, and that's all I can tell you. All right. And so, yes, he's right. Always be nice to the defense lawyers, okay? So shout out to Mr. John Blischak and Andrew Blischak, both Arizona defense lawyers, who I have not had the pleasure of meeting, but shout out to Arizona defense lawyers. And, yeah, I've had people, do and say very, very nasty things because of who I have worked with and represented. So it should, right. I think that representing Ray Epps is a heroic thing to do, right? Representing Trump is a heroic thing to do. Representing the J6ers are heroic things to do, because anytime somebody feels like anytime a defendant is sort of thrown out or forgotten about, that's when you want to defend them the most. Derek Chauvin was another one. The whole world threw him away. Kyle Rittenhouse was another one. The whole world threw him away. Got to defend the people that people throw away. So shout out to the defense lawyers who are representing Ray Epps. So they say, well, Mr. Ray, Mr. Blischek, I'd like to thank you for all voluntarily coming in for this interview. Thank you for your time. I believe with that, we can go off the record. John Blischek says something. Oh, sorry. John says, I just wanted to comment. I'm just a little bit envious of that nice couch you got in your office. I don't have that in my office. I mean, damn, I got to go to Washington, D.C. So the recorder is still on. The recorders are still on, man. They're talking about the chairs, the office couches. Mr. Epps says, I've got a quick question. Mr. Epps says, Mr. Epps, yes. He says, okay, we're off the record, right? So they go over to the court reporter and she says, yeah, let's go off. We're off the record. Correct. Yes. We've gone off the record at 4:08 p.m. The interview is concluded. And then that's when we finally get the real stuff. Ray Epps finally asks a good question. I've got a quick question. What do you think that question is before the transcript ends? All is certified by the illegally constituted J6 committee. What's Ray Epps' question? He says, when am I getting my final payment? Why won't Liz Cheney return my calls? Many different questions could possibly be there. But that is the full deposition of Ray Epps, America's most innocent man, the person who, despite being there on the Capitol, screaming at people to go into the building, the person who walked onto the property, the person who broke through the barricades with the initial penetration of the rioters, all of it is not enough to convict him. He is free. The J6 committee allowed him to continue on. Of course, we'll continue to cover that. Thank you for following along wherever it is you're watching this video. The J6 saga will continue. And of course, we will continue to cover it. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're doing it. And I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Woo! All right, my friends. That was a long depo. Took a little longer than I thought it was. But let's do ourselves a water break. And before we jump into our Twitter files, we've still got 2 segments left on the show. It's a good thing it's a Friday. We've got 2 segments, a short one on the Twitter files, and then we're going to check out what's going on with the Idaho students, because there was a press conference today where we heard about the police chief. We heard about this individual, Bryan Kohberger, who got arrested. We are going to check in with the prosecutor out of Idaho and learn more about the weapon that they still have not found yet. But Twitter files 10.5 is coming up. We're going to take a quick water break. And shout out to our sponsors over at 4patriots.com. My friends, a food shortage could be coming. Even in the United States, experts have written about this as recently as July. Drought, inflation, even new policies are pushing America's food supply near its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important now than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4Patriots survival food kits ever. This is not ordinary food. We're talking about good for 25 years super survival food, hand-packed right in family-owned facilities in the United States, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, and they stack easily. They have different delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including this 3-month survival kit. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on orders over $97. They're called 4Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Go to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com. Use code Robert. Start building your own stockpile today. That's right. Get that calorie supply locked and loaded so that you have it ready in case you ever need it. Hopefully you never do, but the world is crazy. All right. And John Allen over on Locals is doing a breathe in on 7. He's doing some breathing exercises. I see Rumble is still kicking away over there. Shout out to TJ, AJ, Dallas, Annie Get Your Gun. Our friends over on YouTube. We've got Just Causes in the house. Radioactive Girl Scouts over there. And I see James Rosano. Which means we're ready to rock and roll and jump into the very next segment. So let's do it. Twitter Files 10.5. Not an official drop, but some very good updates that came out. Matt Taibbi is telling us, hang tight. I know you guys are waiting for the next installment of this stuff, but it is coming soon. And when it does, it is going to connect the dots. We've got 2 updates from Taibbi. He posted this on Twitter. He tells us the FBI is explaining to Twitter that they'll handle info from the USIC, the United States Intelligence Community, while the Department of Homeland Security Agency, CISA, will send domestic reports. More coming soon from the Twitter Files. He posted that 12/29/2022, and we know that the next drops that come out are supposed to be COVID-related, misinformation-related, and so on. This is an email from Yoel. This one was published sent September 21st, 2020 at 8:48 p.m. From Elvis Chan, the supervisory special agent out of San Francisco, who was the FBI agent responsible for colluding with the big tech companies. He sent this over to Yoel Roth. He says, hey, Yoel, thanks for the response. I have some additional questions regarding them. I am aware the industry is meeting about this on Friday, so you may not have any clarification until then. We can discuss during and after our scheduled meeting, depending on what your schedule looks like. 1. Question. If it will only be a one-way communication from the U.S. government to the industry, it seems like it should at least be FBI and CISA. From the U.S. government to the industry, at least FBI and CISA. We can give you everything we're seeing from the FBI and U.S. intelligence community agencies. CISA will know what is going on in each state via the Homeland Security Information Network. New agencies enter the game, and we also have new domestic surveillance, watching what's happening in the states through CISA and the FBI, monitoring speech in America. Now, that's just one update from Matt Taibbi. He gave us more on his Substack, and so let's check in and get some more details. Matt Taibbi writes, notes from San Francisco. On the way home after the holidays, some notes on the Twitter Files. Matt writes, having seen the Redwoods with the boys by day, sampled dim sum last evening, and overdosed on movies in San Francisco, I'm headed home. Terrific trip I won't forget. In the coming days, you'll find a new thread on Twitter, along with a 2-part article here at his Substack, which you should subscribe to at taibbi.substack.com, explaining the latest Twitter Files findings. Even as someone in the middle of it, naturally jazzed by everything I'm reading, I feel the necessity of explaining why it's so important to keep hammering at this. Matt writes, any lawyer who's ever sifted through a large discovery file will report the task is like archaeology. You dig a little, you find a little claw, you move on, you find a tooth, hours later you get a pelvis bone, and so on. And after a while, you think you're looking at something that was alive once, but what? Who knows? Matt says, at the moment, all we can do is show a few pieces of what we think might be a larger story. I believe the broader picture will eventually describe a company that was directly or indirectly blamed for allowing Trump to get elected, and whose subjugation and takeover by furious combinations of politicians, enforcement officials, and media became priority as soon as Trump took office. Trump used Twitter to win. Everybody was following him. Every tweet had the whole world captivated. So as soon as he won, they had to take that tool away. The next few pieces that come are the result of looking at 2 discrete data sets. one ranging from the mid-2017 to early 2018s, and the other spanning from roughly March 2020 through the present. In the first piece, focused on the late 2017 period, you see how Washington politicians learned that Twitter could be trained quickly to cooperate and cede control over its mod process through a combination of threatened legislation and bad press. They just sent Elvis Chan in there to have powwows with Yoel. In the second, you'll also see how a cycle of threats and bad media first emerged in 2017 and became institutionalized, to the point where a long list of government enforcement agencies essentially got to operate Twitter as an involuntary contractor, a state agent, an extension of the government, heading into the 2020 election. Requests for moderation were funneled mainly through the FBI, the self-described belly button of the federal government. Not a joke. An agent really does call it that. FBI, they probably pierced it too. The company leadership knew as far back as 2017 that giving in to even one request to suspend this or that set of accused hostile foreign accounts would lead to an endless cycle of demands. Right? It's just like warming up an asset, just like you see in the movies. We'll work to contain that, offered one comms official, without much enthusiasm. After the company caved for the first time, Twitter was living the hell that its leaders created. Matt says, what does all this mean? I haven't really had time to think it over. Surely, though, it means something. He says, I've been amused by the accusations that these stories are cherry-picked, as opposed to what? The perfectly representative sample of the human experience you normally read in the news? Idiots. I added that part. Matt didn't say that. I did. Former baseball analytics whiz Nate Silver chimed in. Some people call him Nate Copper. Nate says, people don't distinguish enough between a random cross-section of communications from a person or organization X and cherry-pick set of favorable examples from a comprehensive list of X. And he's, geeking out over himself. He says, what does he mean by favorable examples? Take a quote like this from FBI agent Elvis Chan telling Yoel Roth at Twitter about possible violative activity. Reports from the intelligence community will come via the Bureau, while a DHS agency will handle the home front. Department of Homeland Security is going to be monitoring U.S. individuals. Matt says, who wouldn't cherry pick that story? Is the implication that another email exists somewhere telling Roth that he won't be getting requests from the U.S. intelligence community by way of the FBI? Come on. Is there a competing story? Is there more evidence that the FBI says, hey, Yoel, thanks for everything, but we're done manipulating you and commandeering your entire company? Did they stop that? Matt would report that, I'm sure, but it hasn't happened. So Matt says, let's stop seeing if they can lie for a while. How bad can it be? Signing out. Thank you for checking him out, right? So that's Matt Taibbi. They're doing great work. So if you want to follow along and get it firsthand, check out Matt Taibbi's Substack. Now, that's more coming, right? Domestic surveillance, all from CISA, monitoring the different states and Homeland Security. And Kanekoa, another independent analyst, an individual also over at Substack at kanekoa.substack.com, he put out a heck of a Twitter thread. Here's what he says. Elon Musk slams CISA censorship as a propaganda platform. CISA, created by Department of Homeland Security, a consortium that used 120 analysts to censor millions of social media posts on COVID and the elections. He writes, the Department of Homeland Security outsourced censorship to an organization called the EIP, something we've talked about here, comprising 4 organizations, one called the Stanford Internet Observatory, University of Washington, and Atlantic's Council, along with Graphica. Here's an image. Figure 1.3 shows the major stakeholder groups that collaborated with the election group to censor America. We've got Elections Infrastructure, ISAC, CISA, Cyber and Infrastructure, and the GEC at the top. They have the big heavy hand. They put pressure on everybody else below them. All of what they call civil society, all of the different causes, Stanford, Harvard, AARP, NAACP, all the platforms are compliant. Facebook, Twitter, Google, TikTok, Reddit, Nextdoor, Discord, Pinterest. And they say, we did not formalize partnerships with the media, but we definitely engaged with them. Okay, all of these other things were formal relationships. 120 analysts monitored 15 tech platforms in 2020. 22 million tweets were labeled misinformation. The entire misinformation narrative was targeted for widespread platform throttling. The entire platform was throttling the information. Look at all these different tweets, retweets and incidents, millions and millions of tweets. Think about these almost like campaign commercials, right? If these people are all on the right and they're all promoting one candidate and one cause and one communication, one narrative, and they get censored, that's like they just took away their campaign commercials, right? They're literally taking away their tools that they can use to win the election. They had a big problem after Trump did this. All of this was useful in 2016, right? Think about all those impressions, all of those retweets, it's like billboards. Every retweet, every tweet is like a billboard, a digital billboard out there. They just chop them all down. And it's all from the people you'd expect. James Woods, Gateway Pundit, Trump Jr., Tom Fitton, Jack Posobiec, Cat Turd, Eric Trump, Callisto, Kirk, Mark Levin, James O'Keefe, Robbie Starbuck, Sean Hannity, right? All of these people. They're installing billboards, digital billboards to support Trump, and the Democratic big tech platforms are just chopping them down. This speech control network flagged popular YouTube channels as well. They were getting YouTube? Project Veritas, Trump, One America News Network, the GOP War Room, Steven Crowder, Judicial Watch. Tweets and videos all getting nuked. Look at these millions and millions of views. Project Veritas, 9.6 mil. Donald Trump, 10.8 mil. Crowder's down here, 8.1 mil. News Now from Fox, 9.4 mil. Billboards all just nuked. The FFO Freedom Report details the government's role in outsourcing this censorship. They say that this was an extensive relationship, $40 million donated. The DHS quietly corrupted CISA's mission. It was designed to protect infrastructure, but they took it over and they used it to censor American speech and to get outcomes of certain elections that they want.
What the Russians have done is weaponized social media. The issue is not just the Russians, but frankly, domestic disinformation.
Yeah,
how do you think that they've weaponized social media?
Literally using it to manipulate public opinion, to put stories out that are biased or phony in order to drive public opinion a certain way.
Literally what the FBI, CISA, DHS are doing, literally.
Probably more domestic generation of disinformation content is occurring than foreign. Frankly, I think in 2016, it wasn't that clear that the Russian efforts, in terms of the actual persuasiveness of the content, was all that sophisticated.
It was useless.
I think what the Russians may well have learned is they don't have to make the content up. We have people in the U.S. who will do it.
There's really two totally different disinformation attacks in 2016. The Internet Research Agency created these personas to take over existing groups in the United States. And then once they had established that, they would then try to push the most radical possible position.
I think, yeah, take advantage of them so they could prosecute them with kidnapping plots and insurrections.
We talk way too much about foreign influence. I'm gonna be honest. I think we talk way too much about it because it's sexy and it's fun and it's a little bit Cold War-y. But the truth is that the vast majority of these problems, of kind of the problems in our information environment, are domestic problems. There are problems in how we interact with each other, of the norms that have been created about online political speech, about amplification issues, about how now politicians are utilizing platforms. And so I think we have like an 80-20 breakdown of 80% we talk about foreign and 20 domestic. I think that needs to be flipped.
The Kremlin's influence
Foreign
operation.
and domestic should be flipped. So 80% foreign, 20% domestic. It should be 20% foreign, 80% domestic because of all of the insurrectionists.
This has a particular resonance for me because in June of 2016, I broke the story of the Russian hack of the Democratic National Committee.
Wow.
Even though I'm sort of a national security reporter and a little more focused on the foreign side, I think the most significant immediate threat to the 2020 election is the domestic threat, domestic disinformation, domestic influence, whatever you want to call it.
We are lost. It's just because of this little bitty pinprick that was put in by a foreign country.
It's overwhelmingly more domestic than foreign this time around in 2020. They must wonder what they could possibly say that would change anyone's mind that's not already being said in the American landscape.
Yeah, so they want to get control over the conversation so they can censor the bad information that doesn't support their cause. Kanakoa continues, and you can follow him on Twitter as well at Kanakoa the Great. Says that CISA had a First Amendment problem. They couldn't go in there and just censor everybody. The U.S. government cannot sandblast millions of voters off the internet. This is the state agent theory. The government, Congress shall make no law in the First Amendment. And they want to outsource all of this to a private entity who can do all of those things for them. Kanakoa shares another link from that Stanford professor where he's talking about doing just that. He says that CISA lacked the funding and the legal authorizations to do grand-scale censorship, so CISA partnered with the EIP. They filled in the gaps, and they connected the dots. Let's listen to how they did this.
There was a lack of capability around election disinformation. This is not because CISA didn't care about disinformation, but at the time they lacked both kind of the funding and the legal authorizations to go do the kinds of work that would be necessary to truly understand how election disinformation was operating. So because of the feedback and the ideas from this group, we were able to pull together pretty quickly a project between these 4 different institutions to try to fill the gap of the things that the government cannot do themselves.
Right. So the government doesn't have the power to do it, but these tech companies can be persuaded using the strong arm of the government to do that work, even though it is a violation of the Constitution. You see here this workflow. They've got the 4 major stakeholders, the government, civil society, platforms, and the media, the same entities we talked about at the start of the thread. They have literally an intake queue, okay, where all the disinformation goes in. They get to scan everything and say whether you're allowed to think that or talk about that or believe that or retweet that or email that or whatever. It has a tier 1 intake team of a bunch of bureaucratic morons who then will get to decide whether you're allowed to talk about those things, on-call data gathering, and so on. They go to an analyst queue. So your messages, your speech gets lined up into some idiot's queue somewhere. And they say, oh gosh, he was making an election joke about voting on Wednesdays. Or that was Trump who said something about, I won't be attending an inauguration, which means he's going to nuke Washington, D.C. or something. Right? Analyst queue. So then you get these very sophisticated people who are skilled analysts who do team maps, and they provide attribution, and then they push that over to the outcomes queue. And if one of the outcomes is you should be banned and censored and thrown off the internet and have all of your speech silenced in violation of the Constitution, well, that's just part of the problem. That's just part of the solution. Maybe you shouldn't be such an insurrectionist. All of those outcomes get pushed back over to all of the entities. So it's like this big filter that just censors out any problematic Trump information, because that would be problematic if that got posted online.
There are kind of 4 major stakeholders that we operated with, that we worked beside at EIP. Our partners in government, most particularly those in CISA, DHS, but also in all the local and state governments with whom we operated with the election integrity infrastructure, ISAC. We worked with civil society groups such as the NAACP, MITRE, Common Cause, and the Healthy Elections Project that worked at both.
Filter all of them out. Kanakoa says, who are these unelected bureaucrats? Chris Krebs. Remember Chris, this fellow? We spent a lot of time talking about him. He took a bunch of hearings in front of Congress, and he said that these were the most secure elections ever. Why? Because he installed his filter, his great filter that was able to censor information.
It exists just naturally within the ecosystem on Facebook and elsewhere. And that's where we need the platform to be more transparent in how their algorithms work, how engagement works, so that outside security experts and researchers can dig in and hold them accountable, that us as consumers of these platforms can hold them accountable and demand better.
What would we do if the Russians were doing this? The oath that we pledge coming into office as a federal official is that you uphold and defend the Constitution from threats, foreign and domestic. We have held our oath.
Sorry,
So is Donald Trump a domestic threat?
Yeah.
There is disinformation that he is spreading.
So then, yes.
The Hunter
So then,
Biden
yes.
laptop. That was remarkably similar to a hack and leak operation from 2016. It was just in a different model. And again, whether it was Russia or not, I don't know. I don't care. The big shifts that I saw from 2016 to 2020.
You based your entire response policy on that, it being Russian.
Was the reaction across media and how they did not uncritically and breathlessly report these things.
Misinformation, the Surgeon General put his finger on misinformation in terms of blocking people getting to vaccines. You fought a lot of misinformation with respect to elections. Do you see similarities between those two?
Absolutely. We need, for instance, also, self-policing across groups like lawyers. So state bar associations can take action against those that sponsor the 60-plus frivolous lawsuits.
Oh, he wants the lawyers to lose their licenses if you go and you fight on behalf of your clients. If Donald Trump comes to you and says, hey, can you represent us on something? A lawyer would say, no, I might lose my law license. This guy wants your driver's license taken away if you transport misinformation, right? If you're somebody who says something, fights for your client, lose your law license. Maybe you should lose your access to the internet, honestly. I mean, if you're out there tweeting misinformation, why should you be even allowed online?
Percentage of those that were frivolous. You can look at COVID. You can see state medical boards similarly took action against a number of doctors that were grifting on various solutions to COVID. So
yeah, so everybody that he doesn't like should have their mouths shut closed. Alex Stamos is a former Facebook executive. He's the founder of the EIP network, member of the Council of Foreign Relations, loves censoring his political opponents. He said over half of the Republicans in Congress are like ISIS. Yeah, that's the type of guy who wants to control information. And Kate Starbird is also somebody who works over at CISA. Grants have funded her work on domestic censorship for a long time as well. The Election Integrity Project uses advanced monitoring to map out entire networks of people who spread a narrative.
We would plot it in this way so we could see how it went viral. And what these do, this is a cumulative graph that shows the cumulative spread of a particular kind of claim. And what it has is on the y-axis is how many times it's been shared, and on the x-axis is time. And what we do is we plot each tweet on this as a shape, depending on what kind of, like what tweet type it is, if it's a retweet or a quote tweet or whatever. And we size each tweet by the size of the audience of that account. And what this allows us to do is not always, sometimes things take off with the random account somehow, but often you'll see these high follower accounts change the trajectory of a tweet, helping it go viral. So it allows us to see who is really influential in the spread of a claim. And so so his original post was repeatedly retweeted, remixed, and reframed as it spread through other influential social media.
So you can see they're just tracking it. Eliza Schaefer down there at the bottom, the Daily Mail got it, Tim Cass got it, Gateway Pundit got it, and then boom, and the whole thing popped up as real Donald Trump Jr. Dropped it, and it just spreads around like wildfire. And so they've got to shut everybody up. Starbird told her Facebook followers to vote Democrat, said that Trump's responsible for corruption and collusion. He's a racist as well, and he supports white supremacy. She also heads CISA's disinformation advisory panel. Guess who else is on there? Vijaya, recently fired top lawyer from Twitter. Okay, all of these people are on this entity, apparently, the Cybersecurity Advisory Committee. Look at this. Gotti's on there, along with Stamos and Starbird. Bunch of whack jobs. We have Graham Brookie, another person who's a government-funded disinformation expert, dedicated his time during Trump's years to promoting a false narrative that Trump was a Russian plant. All of these people who spread misinformation all the time are the people who are supposed to be securing us from misinformation. Now, as you can see, scrolling through this, I'd encourage you to go follow Kanikoa the Great to read the rest of this. He's walking us through literally executive after executive who work for these big tech entities. They were allowed to control the narrative. They were banning full lanes of communication in order to win. Okay, amazing thread that I will leave you to read. He says, regardless of your opinion, it's clear that they conspired to support their cause and to win. And so follow the rest of this over at Kanakoa the Great on Twitter. You can see it goes very, very in depth. And of course, be sure to support him over on Twitter as well. Elon said that this was a very interesting thread. And so I'm fully expecting to see much more here. This is what Elon said in response to Kanakoa's thread. So it is interesting. I'd encourage you to go read the rest of it because there will be much more coming out. We'll expect Twitter Files 11 whenever it drops. Of course, we will cover it. And I hope you join us as we do. Thank you for being here, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends, and we've got one final segment to get to. And so let's jump right in. The Idaho students, the killer responsible allegedly for murdering 4 individuals, has been captured. We see this this individual, Bryan Christopher, allegedly responsible for the deaths of 4 people. He was captured. He's still currently in Pennsylvania, and he's being extradited to come back here to the state of Idaho. We're going to listen to what the police chief said in a recap, along with the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, and we'll learn more about Bryan Christopher Kohberger and about his background. But let's get a recap from the chief of police who tells us more about what happened in Idaho back in November.
To recap this case, on the evening of November 12th, Kaylee and Madison arrived home at about 1:56 a.m. after visiting a local bar and street food vendor. Ethan and Xana were at the Sigma Chi house before arriving home around 1:45 a.m. The 2 surviving roommates had also been in the community but returned around 1 a.m. On the morning of November 13th, a 911 call was made at 11:58 a.m. reporting an unconscious person at the residence. The call came from inside the home from one of the surviving roommates' cell phones. Moscow police responded and found 2 victims on the 2nd floor and 2 victims on the 3rd floor. On November 17th, autopsies were conducted and the Latah County coroner confirmed the identity of the 4 victims. The cause and manner of death was homicide by stabbing.
Terrible.
Some had defensive wounds. What's
going on here?
Some hands. These murders have shaken our community, and no arrest will ever bring back these young students. However, we do believe justice will be found through the criminal process. This was a very complex and extensive case. We developed a clear picture over time, and we stand assured that the work is not done, but be assured the work is not done. This is just started. Since November, we have remained laser focused on pursuing every lead in our pursuit of justice for the victims and their families. I recognize the frustration with the lack of information that's been released. However, providing any details in this criminal investigation might have tainted the upcoming criminal prosecution or alerted the suspect of our progress. We will continue to provide as much information as we can as the process moves forward. Today, I want to specifically thank our dedicated Moscow Police Department detectives, patrol officers, the Idaho State detectives, the Idaho State troopers, and their crime lab technicians and scientists.
All right, so that is the chief of police. You can see he looks a little broken up. You can hear the quivering in his voice. 4 students killed. Absolutely a horrific story. And their names were Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan. You can see the 4 of them here, circled in circles, in red circles there, were murdered, as the police chief explained in his details. in his recounting of the story. The person allegedly responsible for doing it is this guy, Bryan Christopher Kohberger. We're going to learn a little bit more about him from the prosecutor. His name is Bill Thompson. He's going to tell us about the affidavit process and about the extradition process, but a little bit more from him. Now, there were some people digging up some background on him from the Twitter spheres and from the social medias. And here's what this person, definitely a scam, posted on Twitter. They say the Idaho's murder suspect, Bryan Kohberger, follows both Kaylee and Maddie on his personal Instagram account and Xana on his PhD Instagram account. So this guy's on both of two different, he's a follower of three of the victims. You see it here, Bryan Kohberger, PhD. We've got Xana is followed here. And we also have Kaylee is followed here by Bryan Kohberger, actually by both accounts. You see both of those there. Let me get myself out of the way. You see them both there. All right. So interesting, right? He's following them. That leads to some more intentionality. Does he know them? Is there a relationship there? We don't get a lot of details from the police, but people are saying there may be some sort of a relationship. So interesting. We've also got criminology is potentially what this guy was studying as a PhD student. David Hookstead got this one, saying he's 28 years old, 4 University of Idaho students. Washington State University lists him as a graduate studying criminology. It's not clear if he is still an active student. The school is just 15 minutes away from Moscow, Idaho, which is where all of this occurred. So there's another photograph of him there. Now, criminology and a PhD study. So evidently, he had to do some PhD work on his thesis. Red Rum Media, at the Red Rum Media, dug this one up. Says it just gets worse. They actually got some questions from a study that he posted about on Reddit. So this individual evidently posted this 212 days ago. Says, hello, my name is Bryan, and I'm inviting you to participate in a research project. He posted this on r/xcons, which presumably is a Reddit subreddit that is for ex-convicts. He says, I'm inviting you to a research project that seeks to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. In particular, this study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience. In the event that your most recent offense was not one that led to a conviction, you may still participate. In other words, if you committed a crime but you haven't gotten caught, I'd love to talk to you. Additional surveys are included after the open-ended section as to best understand your unique traits. The study should take about 15 to 20 minutes to fully complete. Just a couple questions. Now, your answers and identity that are provided will be completely confidential, and the link to the survey is also an anonymous link. The research has been approved by the DeSales University IRB. Participants must be 18 years of age or older. If you opt in to participate, you can cancel at any time. If you have any questions, please let me know. Send me an email at bk5781 at an edu address posted to Twitter. Very interesting survey. So here are some of the questions now that popped up during the survey from DeSales University. Question: after committing the crime, what were you thinking and feeling? How did you leave the scene? Any good ideas? Before leaving, is there anything else you did? Can you tell me why you did that? And you didn't get caught? Great. How did you accomplish your goal? Please explain what you were thinking and feeling. What was your first move you made in order to accomplish your goal? Please detail any thoughts. Before making your move, how did you approach the victim or the target? Please detail what you were thinking and feeling. Why did you choose that victim or target over others? These people, like, what if you, like, what if this is like, shoplifting? Somebody stole a candy bar. This is like Dexter level murder questions. Why did you choose that victim or target over others? Did they offend you, and did you plot on them for 4 months before you decided to do it? After arriving, what steps did you take prior to locating the victim or the target? Please detail your thoughts and feelings. Those were the questions from Bryan Kohberger when he sent that in on Reddit. So, a very strange individual. And he has now been apprehended. And the police are pretty sure they've got the guy who did it. They feel pretty confident about it. But unfortunately, we don't get much more information until he is transported back. This is the Idaho prosecutor responsible for bringing to justice the alleged murderer of 4 Idaho students.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Bill Thompson. I'm the Latah County prosecutor. And it's sad to be here, but happy to be here at the same time. As Chief Fry indicated, a criminal complaint was filed yesterday here in Latah County, charging the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, with 4 counts of first-degree murder, in addition to felony burglary, which involves entering the residence with the intent to commit the crime of murder. Mr. Kohberger, and let me preface, there is a pending case now in court, and I and my office and the investigators have to live with the restrictions that our Supreme Court places on pretrial publicity. That said, I promise you we will share with you, through the court process or otherwise, whatever we are allowed to. I just appreciate your patience on that. The factual basis for the charges are summarized in what's called a probable cause affidavit that is on file with the court. According to the rules of the Idaho Supreme Court, that is sealed until Mr. Kohberger is physically back in Latah County and has been served with the Idaho arrest warrant. At that time, we expect that that affidavit will be available to you so you can share the true facts with all of your readers and your watchers and your listeners and all the people who are interested and really need to know what's going on.
Yeah,
so
we want to see it.
please have patience with us on that.
All right.
We hope to get that to you as soon as we can. As far as Mr. Kohberger, I can share with you that he is a graduate student at Washington State University and has an apartment residence over at Pullman. He has had an initial appearance in front of a judge in Pennsylvania. He is being held without bond, and the warrant from our magistrate judge here also provides for no bond. We understand that he's scheduled to be back in court in Pennsylvania next Tuesday afternoon, and that a public defender has been appointed for him there. The process at this point is, since he was arrested in another state, he has the opportunity to either waive extradition and return voluntarily to the state of Idaho, or if he prefers not to waive extradition, then we will initiate extradition proceedings through our governor's office.
And we talked about some of that last time. The last time we talked about extradition here was in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. And if you remember, his attorneys were going to be challenging extradition back to Kenosha at some point, and then they didn't. It happens pretty quickly. I think most states, and I haven't taken a look at, Idaho versus Pennsylvania, but most states in the United States are part of what's called an interstate compact, right? They sort of agree with each other that they'll recognize each other's justice systems. And so extradition usually happens like rapidly. In actual country exchanges, it takes a lot longer. We talked earlier this week about the Duggan case, which is the Australian individual who is wanting to be, the DOJ wants to extradite him. And a process like that will take a lot longer.
If we do that, it can take a while for him to get here. So again, I'm asking for your
We'll
patience and understand that's just the way the system works.
All right, so it will take some time. That is the Santa Claus prosecutor who's going to be bringing justice down the chimney for all of us. And here he is explaining a little bit more about having some patience, but he's also telling the world, get the information out about this guy. Let everybody know this happened.
Once he gets here, he'll have an initial appearance with our magistrate. They'll deal with issues such as making sure competent counsel is representing him, and the case will be scheduled for further hearings. Your primary source of factual information is going to be the court record. because that's what the Supreme Court says we need to refer you to. So please pay attention to what's going on in court and have people there to watch and hear what's being said. As an attorney, myself and my office, we are limited on what we are allowed by the courts to say outside of the
not much
courtroom.
news.
So please just work with us. Finally, as the chief indicated, this is not the end of this investigation. In fact, this is a new beginning. You all now know the name of the person who has been charged with these offenses. Please get that information out there.
Spread it around like
ask
wildfire.
The public, anyone who knows about this individual, to come forward, call the tip line, report anything you know about him to help the investigators and eventually our office and the court system understand fully everything there is to know about not only the individual, but what happened and why.
Yeah, so
next I'll introduce
sharing that with you. So if you know anybody or if anybody does know anything, right, that is still something that they're looking for. They still want information. And the rest of the press conference was very, very quick. They didn't release a lot of new information because they said they can't, right? All of this is going to be in the affidavit, in the probable cause statement. When he does get transferred back, he'll be served with it. They're going to say, we have to serve the defendant before we can make the rest of this stuff public. And then we'll see it. And then what's in there should be good, right? There should be a lot of information in there about how they justify and support their causes. It should be more, more details. It won't be a full police report until they also release that as well. They're typically just in this probably a couple pages. We often read a lot of the initial affidavits. I imagine this one will be pretty hefty, but then we'll look at the full police report once the discovery process starts and more of this information comes out. But it is interesting that they've caught the person. The information that they are sharing is not much, but there is one bit that they are making sure they are letting us know about, and it involves the murder weapon.
Hey, Chief. Have you guys found the murder weapon or the Hyundai Elantra?
So we are still looking for all pieces of evidence, but we are still looking for the weapon. And I will say that we have found an Elantra.
They found an Elantra, but not the murder weapon, and they're letting you know that in case you know anything about the Elantra or the murder weapon. So still piecing together some parts of this, but good news is evidently they found the person responsible for the horrific murders of 4 students. And so our thoughts and prayers go out to their families as they hopefully get a little bit of closure, knowing that the process has at least started. Of course, we will continue to cover this and other stories like it as we dive back into some criminal law here. But if you'd like to follow along, don't forget to subscribe. Of course, we'll be back here, and we look forward to seeing you as we come back. All right, my friends, that is it for us on the day. And so we covered a lot of ground here. We hit a little Twitter Files 10.5 because that just keeps on producing new shocking revelations for us. We spent some time on the Idaho students. We also learned a lot about Ray Epps and his son and other activities there on January 6th. But now it's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about all of this. I saw some very nice, generous super chats come in over on our YouTube. Thank you to our YouTube friends. And we are running almost out of time on locals, so locals will probably have to start open another thread as soon as we're done here. But let's pull open our super chats comments in one quick minute as soon as I log in here, because it logged me out, because it likes to do that every time I have a show to do. It just says, well, we'll just log you out. What the heck? And then it takes me to a whole different thing. So we're pulling it up right now as we speak. Those very generous super chats. Any minute now. Here they are. We had a couple come in to get us started. Jenny B just sent one in too. Let's see what we had starting us off here today. A lot of questions And the first one came in from Nolan. Shout out to Nolan Buss. He says, I was at the Ellipse on J6. And says, I had someone approach me saying the exact script Epps said. After he said that to me, I saw him say it to many more people. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if it's those same people that Ray Epps was talking about, some of the organized people who were out there agitating and organizing. There were many people. The feds acknowledged they had people there. So whether they were reading scripts or not, I don't know. But thanks for sharing that, Nolan. Hopefully you're doing well. Joy Ball is here sharing a ha 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 chat. Thank you for the sticker, Joy. Hopefully you're having a beautiful day. Josh, oh my gosh, says my roommate thinks people had guns at the Capitol. I can't find anything that proves his claim. What do you know about this? If there were, it was very, very minimal. I think there may have been like 1 or 2 instances, but I mean, who had guns? Tell him to tell you who. Did the seditious conspirators have guns? Not to my knowledge. Who had the guns? The only person who shot a gun was the Capitol Hill police officer who killed Ashley Babbitt. So if they really wanted to seize America, why didn't they all come rolling in there with ARs, right? Why didn't they all come in there heavy to take over the building? So I guess, what's his point? Who had a gun? Tell him to pull up the video. Pull up the video. Tell him to show you a picture of somebody with a gun. Mark Owens says firm handshakes. Indeed, Mark. Very important. Voice of the people. And thank you, Mark, for sending that one in. Voice of the people says, okay, so Epps admits people started running towards the Capitol when Trump started speaking. He follows. He sees everyone start trying to incite. Yeah, that was a setup. Trump supporters would have stayed put. Yeah, he feels weird, right? He's running in there. He admits he's running in there. He wants to be at the front. He's cold out, so, needed to get inside to warm up his little butt. Thank you, voice of the people. Very strange. Now, okay, like if you want to say Ray Epps is innocent, well, then I'd say, okay, well, as long as you apply that same standard to all of the other J6ers, and you also say they're also innocent, then I'd be okay. I'd leave Ray Epps alone. But that's not what's happening. Jonah says they never mentioned DHS. They don't like to bring it up. Voice of the people says, so the people that staged J6 ask, have you talked to us? Yeah. I'd love to talk to you about this. It's weird, says voice of the people. Voice of the people. Do you have a YouTube channel? Well, I'll look at your channel there, voice of the people. We're talking about it now, which is true. It is a weird, weird case. Bear Ashby says, if you had depositions, Epp was BS. It felt like a game of patty cake, right, Bear Ashby? Like they were almost having a nice conversation. Brenda Mickey says, wow, 97 pages. We should all chip in. Well, I didn't have to pay for this one. I only have to pay for the transcripts at $1.20 a page. This one was provided courtesy of your U.S. taxpayer dollars, several billion that have been now ripped off of us to go fund the domestic violent extremism superstructure. Just Cause says, on behalf of Robert and the entire mod team, we wish you a happy, safe, and blessed new year. Stay safe and do not drive. Be responsible. That is very true. Definitely good advice from Just Cause. It's true. January is one of our busiest months. Okay, no, I'm not joking about that. Everything piles up from Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Everybody gets cited for DUIs and domestic violence and urinating in public and all of it. And then January gets very busy. Hopefully, you don't need to call our office, the R&R Law Group. All right, locals, going to lose you in 5 seconds. I'm going to restart another thread, another live stream. So I'll see you in 1 second. All right, so that's locals. They just nuked us over there. And so we're going to start another one. I have a time limit. So we'll just get it going now. Boom. All right, so we're back on locals. Got that one done pretty quickly. What's up? Jason's back. It's working. Good. All right, so thank you to Just Cause and Happy New Year to you, my friend. Yeah, we're going to be back here on Monday. It's going to be a whole new stinking year. We got James Rosano says, hi, Rob. Hope you're well. And Happy New Year to you, James. It's coming up quick. Lady Freddie says, thank you for your work. Thank you, Lady Freddie, for the super chat. I appreciate you being here and for sending that one in. And I saw we had a new member who joined up. And so shout out to our new member. Playing Hooky sent in a sticker with that looks like a New Year Festival extravaganza from Playing Hooky. Thank you for that one, Playing Hooky. Also very generous. Jenny B sent one in as well. Says, Happy New Year to Rob and his tribe, and especially the mods. Well, I think for Jenny B, I mean, this is it. Like, this is sort of our tribe, you know? And so Happy New Year to you. I appreciate you being here and for sending in the beautiful super chat. All right. And so those came in. We also had a very nice new member join. Shout out to Greg Anderson, who became a supporter on our YouTube member, along with Penny Miller and J.A. LaRue, who both rejoined about a day ago. So everybody gets access to our morning member streams, which are a lot of fun. And that's where we just sort of meander. We talked a lot of architecture today. We talked about buildings and how buildings used to be beautiful, and a lot more of them these days look a lot more disgusting because of reasons. So if you want to stay connected, we also will do some streams and posts on the weekends. Become a YouTube member or join us over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right, my friends. And so that was it for our beautiful super chats. Thank you to everybody who sent those in. We are going to jump. Actually, let's do some Twitter. Let's see if we had any Twitter comments before we jump off to our locals after party. We did have some comments. Let's see what came in here from our friend Paul Minot at Sleepy Dog Lee on Twitter. If you're not following, you're missing some of the best memes out there. Says, I won't be ignored, Andrew. There's a rabbit in a pot. I won't be ignored. So I don't, a rabbit in a pot. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. A hare, boiling a hare? Boiling a hare? It's an old movie? Oh, Bonnie says it's an old movie, so I won't get the meme. I'm unsophisticated. Fatal Attraction is the movie? Oh, it's a movie. That's why I don't get it. Now, this whole story is an interesting story. I guess, you got to be careful here. If you badmouth Greta, I guess you'll just send the World Economic Police after you to go take you out. Crazy. So Resident Bedoin's laughing. He says that's damn funny, Paul Mino. Some of the best memes, Uncle Shane says some of the best memes you won't get. Yeah. So it's not your fault, Paul. I mean, it's a great meme. I just, I don't get it. I'm not sophisticated. So I apologize. It's not, it's for me. Everybody in the chat likes it, but I like it. I don't get it. So another one from Paul. We had 76 viewers at one point on Twitter. That's out of control. If we break triple digits, it's just like probably just retire or something. Paul says, marathon episode. Well done. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for being here with us through it all. A lot of news from Al Holman. Thank you, Al. And from PA local news, we got this one also from our friend Chambermaid 91. Yeah, we covered that today. Happy New Year to SMSHR and to Donald Duck, where they're talking about accountability and where is Ray Epps. All that. TikTok removed a video that I posted from Tom Fabian. They said it was extreme violence. TikTok will do that. We got banned rapidly off of TikTok. Brenda says, y'all got any more of them Twitter files? I know. I miss the Twitter files. Definitely miss them. We hit them today. I mean, but I was looking for like a Twitter files 11. I'm looking for them here today. We did 10.5. Trump Tower. Trump is posting his taco bowl on the platform. And Star Ali Mistrial says, have a blessed and happy new year 2023 from Las Vegas. And so those were from our Twitter friends. And we're over there supporting Elon, of course. But we had a local tip come in from John Allen. John Allen sent this one in. Says, Rob, thanks for another blood-boiling day. Ray Epps, in my opinion, is worse than pond scum. I don't see how you can go through those files without losing it. Good job as always. By the way, I think Don't Be Hating left a tip on the previous locals chat. Oh, man, so I missed that one. So thank you for that. Hey, Bruce Rice just became a member for 3 months. Says, hello, everyone. Trump 2024. Well, thank you for becoming a member, Bruce Rice. You'll get that morning member stream. We'll do another morning. We won't do a live show tomorrow, but we'll do a morning member stream tomorrow. So if you want to check that out, certainly come in and do that. But let me see if I can grab that other chat, because John Allen says, first of all, John, it does make my blood boil. Sometimes I will shout it out in the program. I sort of use that energy as just energy for the show. But I understand. Sometimes it is frustrating, and sometimes I do lose my mind. Don't Be Hating says, Happy New Year. See you next year, Don't Be Hating. Thank you, Don't Be Hating. We will see you next year. We might see you tomorrow, since we'll do a morning member stream tomorrow. All right, but back in our locals chat, we're going to go hit some locals after party comments from our threads. And so if you want to come check us out over there, that's where we'll be for just a little bit longer. Otherwise, my friends, we are done for the day. I want to thank everybody who was a part of the show. Thank you for those amazing super chats. I want to remind you about our sponsors of the show. Of course, my law firm, the R&R Law Group, located in Scottsdale, Arizona. We help good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope. If you know anybody in trouble with the law, that's what we do every day. We're looking forward to a great 2023. We want to help a lot more people. 480-787-0394, online, rrlawaz.com. And also, don't forget to check out our 4Patriots sponsor online at 4patriots.com. Use promo code Robert, get 10% off anything in the store, and get your survival food so that you don't have to worry about it. When everybody's like rushing to the grocery store, filling their carts up with toilet paper and canned goods, you're like, I'm good. I got like 90 days, 6 months, however much you want, stored safely and soundly. It's a beautiful thing. You can also say thank you to our mods who mod down the fort for us. And today I saw Playin' Hooky was here doing the heavy lifting, but shout outs to our friends Vienticus, K-Bean, Lean, Just Cause, Ronnie, Zulu, and Geo, who comes by every now and then. We appreciate you modding down the forts for us. Otherwise, we're heading over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our after party. I hope you come and join us there. But if I don't see you, my friends, we'll be back here on Monday. It's going to be a brand new year. We're going to have a bunch of stuff to get to. I'm very grateful for a beautiful 2022. I think we had an awesome year together. We covered a lot of news. I learned a ton of stuff, had some fun, and I'm very grateful for you, for all the stuff that we got to do together this year. And I'm looking forward to just a heck of a 2023. And so if I don't see you, Happy New Year. We will be back here on Monday to get into it all again for another roaring year. And I look forward to seeing you there so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Locals, I'll see you right there. Everybody else, my friends, have a beautiful night, an amazing weekend, and a very happy, safe new year. I'll see you back here in 2023. Make it a great night, my friends. Bye-bye.